rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times. Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
I know that this isn't that podcast, but I have to say, I'm so relieved. I'm so relieved that Shatner made it back to Earth alive. I mean, I had a friend at the day job came over, and she goes, "Well, did you hear about Captain Kirk?" And I go, "Oh my God, no! Don't tell me."
Oh, yeah.
Did he survive? Did he survive?
Oh, no.
Oh, he survived. The oldest man to ever make it to space and back. It was a little over 10 minutes, like 10 minutes and 17 seconds, this flight from the Jeff Bezos, whatever that thing, the Blue Origin, that's the name of the company. But, man, I was sweating it. And it made me wonder, okay, well, who's next? I mean, you got to think that Elon Musk is going to, he's looking at that roster. I mean, Billy D, Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford. I mean, he's got to be looking across at the other franchise. There's got to be a Star Wars actor that's going to be going into the galaxy far, far away.
Yeah. Or how about George Lucas?
Oh, George himself. Yeah. Can you imagine?
He foot the bill.
Why doesn't he?
Himself.
That's a good point. Why doesn't he have his own spacecraft?
Shaped like the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, he should do that. But yeah, again, I know this is a Star Wars podcast. It's not a Star Trek podcast, but we do love the Trek to a degree. And but I love William Shatner and Captain Kirk, and I was relieved that he made it. But what a story! 90 years old. I thought it was crazy, Jim, when he was doing the Shark Week last summer. I was like, God, that guy's like in his almost 90 years old, and he's swimming around with sharks, and he's scuba diving. Little did I know he was going to, go to the final frontier, almost.
I wonder what's next for Shatner. If he wants to do something really dangerous, he should throw his hat in a ring to become a director of a Star Wars film. If he's really tempting fate.
Man.
If he really wants to be challenged.
Talk about swimming with sharks.
Situations.
Wow. Well, he did direct a Star Trek film. And actually,
right.
Hey, this is a great time for a plug. My thoughts, along with RFR patron supporter Philip Elke, can be heard on one of the latest editions of, I have to say one of the latest, because these things seem to be coming out all the time. The great Q&A series of podcasts, exclusive podcasts for Rebel Force Radio Patreon supporters. But Philip is one of our top tier supporters and wanted to do a follow-up. We had a Q&A a couple months ago, I think back in the summer, where we looked at Star Trek's movies 1 through 3, 1, 2, and 3. Yeah. And then we followed that up just recently with 4, 5, and 6. And we talk about William Shatner directing The Final Frontier and, what went right, what went wrong. And that was before this announcement that he was going to space in real life. But, art imitates life sometimes. But I was relieved that the Shats made it back.
Yeah, really. Maybe he would have wanted to stay up there, this feels like home. It could have been a situation like that.
Well, they interviewed him and he said, everyone's making such a big deal of the fact that he's 90 years old going into space. And hardly anybody is saying Captain Kirk is going into space. He's like, my age finally trumped the story about, that I'm Captain Kirk.
Both are impressive feats.
Yes. But, Jim, if you had to put your money on a Star Wars alum going into space, who do you think is most likely to take the challenge?
Well, that's easy. Harrison Ford. He's a pilot. He is very in tune with aviation, and he knows a lot about crash landing. So I think he's your top candidates.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the guy has a history with aviation, and that's really what these flights are. I mean, this is not going onto the International Space Station. This is hitting that when I don't know the technical term, but when space begins and our atmosphere ends, it's really right there on the cusp. Still, at 44 years old, I would not do it in a million years. You'd have to pay me serious dough to do that. Would you
even
do
for
that?
10 minutes?
Would you do it?
That's an amusement park ride. 10 minutes? Are you kidding
Going
me?
to
Sign me
space
up.
is no amusement park.
Sign me up.
Really?
It's over
You
before
would
it
do
even
it.
begins.
All right,
Hell
so
yeah,
Jimmy
I'd
Mack,
do
he
it.
would
Hell
do it.
yeah.
He would do it. All
I'd
right.
go.
All right.
Well,
Well, hey,
up
if
there
you're
with Jeff Bezos, me, him, and Shatner, and Harrison Ford.
oh, you and Harrison, I know you guys. I know what you'd be doing up there.
Yes, getting cosmic with Harrison while in orbit.
Licking the
That'd
toads.
be a lot of fun. That'd be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Can you imagine? Hey, did you bring the stuff?
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
anyway.
it would be worth it alone just to have him say punch it when the ignition lights
Oh,
up.
can you imagine?
Do you think they asked Shatner to say anything like Warp 9, Because he never had to make it so or didn't.
No, he didn't.
He
have
didn't
one
say
of those
engage.
catchphrases.
He didn't do any of that.
No.
He was above all that.
Yeah, in the movies, he would say, "Take us out." That would be one.
Take
But
us out.
Yeah, take us out.
But that was because they were usually docked at the spaceport, and
that's right.
Take us out. You can only say that once in the movie.
It's no punch
Saying
it.
it.
It's no punch it.
No, it's no punch it.
Well, anyway, you're here to hear talk about Star Wars, and that's what we're here for. We are your source for the Force, Rebel Force Radio. We're already here in the middle of October, which seems hard to believe. I know that both my kids are starting to ask what they're going to be, for Halloween. The daughter is already resigned to the fact that she's just going to hand out the candy, and then she's hit that age where she's like, "Well, I'll just hand out candy." But my 9-year-old, he's all about it. He wants me to finish up his Mandalorian costume, so got to work on that. Only got a couple precious weeks to do it, but
the clock's ticking.
It's ticking big time. But we have a great show coming up this week. Really excited for it. Right out of the gate here, we're going to be joined in the cantina very shortly with Devin Michael. And if that name sounds familiar to you, it should, because just a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Devin as being the subject of a New York Times mini documentary that chronicles his journey, as his hero's journey, is really kind of how they juxtapose it, as an almost Anakin. He was one of 3, including Jake Lloyd, that nearly landed the role of Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. You see him in the documentary footage that has come out, showing those screen tests with Natalie Portman there at Skywalker Ranch. And Jim, the story hit, and it was like, wow, this seems strange. There was no anniversary to celebrate. Just out of the blue, this story hits the New York Times. And then
it was out of the blue, and it was funny because when I caught it on the Google, the headline, "In a Galaxy Far, Far Away, he was almost Anakin Skywalker." And being as familiar as I am with the web featurettes and the documentary from the Episode 1 DVD called The Beginning, I instantly recognized Devin and said, "Oh my God, it's the blonde kid."
The blonde kid, yes.
Because he was really blonde.
Yeah.
The other 2 candidates, Jake and the other kid, they had, Jake was more of a dirty blonde, and the other kid was just flat out brown haired. But this kid had the bleach blonde.
Yeah.
And a lot of fans thought he would have been a great choice for Anakin Skywalker. Just a great choice. Our own Paul Bateman often, he didn't know, Paul didn't know we were going to have Devin on the show this week, but he just unsolicited said to us, he would have been the right choice. I would have loved to seen him. And not to take anything away from Paul, because I know Paul personally told Jake Lloyd to his face, "You were great as Kid Anakin. You were just great."
Yeah.
And I think Jake told Paul, "That was a terrible movie." I swear to God, I swear.
Is that right?
I swear to God.
Oh, my God. What a story.
I believe that's how that story went down.
Holy cow.
Paul might be mad at me for telling it. But there it is. It's out there. So,
wow.
But we know Jake he has a very complicated relationship with Star Wars, and so let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
So I can kind of understand what would motivate a comment like that from Jake Lloyd. But Devin Michael, he has a very unique perspective on what the casting was like for Episode 1 and that all-important role of young Anakin.
Wow.
So he's going to be joining us later.
Yeah,
and
it's going to be awesome.
Stories to tell. I think he's going to really be able to add a lot more insight and substance to the New York Times documentary, which was great, but it was only 15 minutes.
Right.
So we're going to talk to Devin until he passes out from the intense questioning he's going to be going through. But I can't wait for that. We got some other stuff. Some new Star Wars books are coming up that are going to maybe fill in some open holes in the sequel trilogy.
Holes? Holes in the sequel trilogy? Come on.
Maybe connect a few dots, flush things out a little bit. And we got Star Wars and pop culture. That's back. We have to keep bringing back Star Wars and pop culture because I told you guys, let us know if you catch any great Star Wars and pop culture moments. Let us know at show@rebelforceradio.com. And you guys flood our email inbox. So we got a few good ones this week we're going to sample.
Yeah.
But first, let's hear from the kid who was almost Anakin Skywalker, Devin Michael. Here's a little taste of his audition for George Lucas back in the mid-90s.
Hi, my name is Devin Michael, and I'm 9 years old.
Scene 1, take 1.
And action.
Are you an angel?
What?
An angel. I've heard the deep space pilots talk about them. They live on the moons of Iago, I think. I'm a pilot, you know. Someday, I'm going to fly away from this place.
You're a pilot?
All my life.
You're just a little boy.
I won't always be.
Without any further ado, let's just get into the cantina and talk to Devin. How about that? Let's do it.
Star Wars Cantina.
Where are you going, Master?
For a drink.
Sorry about the mess.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
All right, as we mentioned at the top of the show, we are delighted to be joined in the cantina with Devin Michael. All right, welcome to Rebel Force Radio, Devin.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure to be here.
Hey, it wasn't that long ago, just a couple of weeks, that we were talking about the mini documentary that premiered through the New York Times. I guess this is a series that they do. And gosh, the last thing I was expecting to see on our show rundown a few weeks ago was a mini documentary about the guy, one of the 3 finalists, to be Anakin Skywalker in the Phantom Menace. It was refreshing because as Star Wars fans, we're constantly talking about the most recent stuff, particularly the stuff that's on Disney Plus and the sequel trilogy that just wrapped up, and we here at Rebel Force Radio, we love the prequels. We love talking about George's vision for those films, and they're so well documented that it was really, really cool to see your story all these years later. How did that mini doc come about? Were they looking for you? Did you reach out to them? How did you decide you wanted to get your story out?
They found me. It was one of those out of the blue things that I was not expecting to ever hear about this again in my wildest dreams. And I got a call. It was right at the beginning of the pandemic when I was looking for stuff to do. And I get a call. And they're telling me about this series that they're doing, Almost Famous, right? And they describe this project that they're working on. They're finding people who have narrow brushes with fame, superstardom sometimes. And they'd done a few already, and it was successful, and they wanted to do a second series. And somehow or another, they heard about me. Somebody pitched my story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I saw that there was one on there, a guy he was almost Colonel Sanders. So
yeah.
the YouTube just keeps playing these things, and it kind of sucked me in. I think that what I thought was so interesting about your story was the various phases, and I want to get into all of those. Obviously, you had the initial audition, then you have the release of the trailer, the merchandise, the film comes out. You think it's kind of behind you. Then all of a sudden the DVD comes out. There's a documentary, and there you are in this documentary. It just seems like, you just kept getting hit again. And a lot of people in their career have setbacks, or they have things that didn't go the way they may have wished that they did. But very few get that constant reminder, or that, those punches. And you describe it very, very well in the documentary. But I want to go back to some of the things that you said early on, particularly you saw Star Wars for the first time. It sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but when the special editions came out back in 97.
Yeah, no. That's how they kind of edited it together. No, I had memorized the movies by that point. I saw it on the big screen for the first time when the re-release came out, obviously, because I was too young to have seen it when it came out in theaters. But that was a big deal for me, having grown up memorizing the lines. I'd seen them hundreds of times before I got to see it on the big screen, and that was only about, I think, 2 years before I got to audition for the part, so it was fresh, huge in my mind.
You were part of that VHS generation watching that.
Yeah, for sure.
That's right.
Well, growing up in the 90s saw a resurgence in Star Wars books and comic books and things like that. Even action figures came back. Were you caught up in any of that, or were you just a fan of the films?
Fan of the films, but I have an older brother who's 8.5 years my senior, so I got to also have a little bit of his perspective, and he has some of the action figures, some of the comic books. And it was all around me. That was, you're right, huge in the 90s. There was a big resurgence, another generation of kids growing up with those movies.
And your brother's also an actor, right?
That's right, yeah. Yeah.
Does he still act?
I got into it. He does, actually, but now and again, he's mostly behind the camera.
Yeah, okay, cool. And so, like a lot of kids, their older brother kind of guided their way in both Star Wars and Things to Do with Your Time. So you kind of followed his lead into acting as a kid, and that's what led you to get the audition for Star Wars.
Pretty much, yeah. I only got to be an actor because I started acting when I was 1, right? Because Jordan was so good and so into Hollywood and so wanted to do this, that he got the agent. He got the agent himself, basically. He was that kind of a kid and that kind of a talent, and I just happened to be there.
Yeah, and that was not, and that it's not uncommon for this to happen in families where you have, multiple kids. And in the documentary talks about the Culkins as probably being, one of the most well known. But before that, you had the Lawrence brothers. There were 3 of them. But wow, so 8, almost 9 years difference in age. So it's not like you were like the Lawrence brothers or the Culkins, where you were close enough in age where you could, kind of maybe play siblings or something like that. It would have been a little bit of a stretch, even though you were real siblings. Did you guys ever work together on a project?
We not in a serious way. We've made some trailers and done some pilots.
Oh, fun
spare
stuff.
time.
Yeah,
fun stuff. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But no, professionally, no. The first opportunity for that might have been Star Wars. Had I got the part, he might have been a little bit too old, actually. So he would have been about 18 at the time. I don't know how old Hayden Christensen was when he.
Oh, now that's interesting. Hey, I'm glad you brought up Hayden Christensen because you were talking about some of the other work that you did, and one of the films you were in was a movie called Little Boy Blue, which is
Ryan Phillippe.
with Ryan Phillippe, and it's a dark movie. It's a great movie, and but I when I heard you say that, I'm like, another guy that was almost Anakin Skywalker, and I
100%.
think he was came in second to Hayden Christensen.
That sounds about right. Yeah, he was. I know he was considered. I know that he was strongly considered. I think ruled out because he might have been too old. Kind of like DiCaprio wasn't seriously considered because I think he was too old at the time as well.
Yeah, he had a funny line about that. He thought that he had the part. He thought he nailed the audition. Then he saw Hayden Christensen outside waiting or coming in, and he said, "Oh my God, my high school yearbook photo just walked in." So he realized that if age was going to be a determining factor, it was probably going to be this guy.
That's funny. That would have been really quite a thing to work with Ryan again. I don't feel like we look that close, but to play his brother and then to play his younger self,
yeah,
that would have been quite a thing.
Yeah.
So as a kid who was actively working like you were, it wasn't uncommon for your mom or your agent to come at you and explain to you roles that you would be getting. Was it like a job for you, or would you get excited for the work prior to Star Wars?
I was only there in the first place because I liked it. I wasn't there because it was a job that I got as a kid. Every year or two, my mom would ask me if I still wanted to keep doing this because it was an inconvenient thing for her to have to do to maintain this job, this audition process for myself, going to Hollywood every day. I loved it. I loved everything about it. There were moments that were harder than others, where I had to buckle up and be professional, especially in all the roles I got over and over again, like Little Boy Blue, where I played this abused child. There were hard days at work, but it was still the best thing I could imagine myself doing after school,
Yeah, you're pretty young. What did you like about it so much as a kid? The make-believe aspect, or was it just something where you just felt like this is what I should be doing? You fit in, you just get that feeling.
It was a lot of that, yeah. There was a lot of vocational awareness, I guess. I felt it felt right. It felt good to be there. It felt nice. Also, being on a set, there's an enormous amount of energy, right? And it's a really positive energy. Everybody is working together very, very, very well, very capably to create this project. And even as a little kid, I was aware of that and really liked being around that environment, that kind of people, that kind of energy, that passion, You feel it when you're a child, even when you're a child.
Well, even as a kid, were you in a place where you considered yourself not just acting, but like an artist? Did you ever consider things like that? Did you take it that far?
No, that word didn't really exist when I was a kid. I wasn't performing artist. I was a kid actor. Yeah, it was something I did after school. That came out later. I never considered. There wasn't a whole lot of ego. I think I was listening to the Harry Potter kids talk about working at Pinewood Studios and how people sort of treated them normal, as opposed to what they called the American version of how people treat child actors as like the celebrity. For me, it was none of that. For me, growing up as an actor in the 90s, maybe it's different now. At that moment, it was just normal. People were nice to me because they did have to be. But, it was, there was none of this, like, oh, the artist is having a nap, everybody, nobody bothers the artist. There was none of that, no. It was very normal.
No, and none of that pretense comes off of you at all. I find it interesting hearing you talk about being a kid actor with such perspective that you have now. I think it's really interesting to hear you talk about your experiences, and notably the experience we want to talk about the most is your audition process for episode 1, visiting Skywalker Ranch, hanging out with Jake Lloyd and that other kid,
Michael Angerano.
There you go. Thank you. We got to give him some credit. And Natalie Portman, of course.
Oh, my.
Too young?
Natalie Portman. Angerano, yeah, I think he was about 7 at the time. We were 9.
Oh.
There's a big difference between 7 and 9.
Yeah.
He was a fantastic 7-year-old actor, but didn't quite fit. So he was out pretty early, but had a good career after that. He's a great actor.
In the documentary, Devin, it sounds like you just got in the car after school one day and your mom said, "Hey, we got you an audition for Star Wars." Is that how it went down? And it sounded like you didn't really even care what the part was. She had you at Star Wars.
Oh yeah, easily. I mean, how would you react? Like, hey,
I'd want to know.
Wars.
All right,
you're like, is it the lead? Or I would have been a sand person.
Right. Well,
it didn't matter at all.
So you didn't know, or did you know? Oh, you later.
Yeah. Initially, no, and initially it was just you're going to go out for Star Wars. Awesome, fantastic. Let's go. It's going to be for Anakin. I'm like, Anakin, who's Anakin? Oh, wait. Like Luke's dad, Anakin? You're like, yeah, you're going to play him as a little kid. I'm like, oh my stars.
Yeah. And that first piece was, the first stop was just like a big cattle call, right? That's like...
Massive. Across the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, probably elsewhere, as far as I know. It was huge. I think they started with about 3,000, which was a big number back in those days. I think it's easier. There's larger pools now, especially with the advent of sending in your own tapes. So you can do a cattle call of 10,000 very easy. In those days, you had to go in and talk to a casting director, and there was basically one casting director or one casting director company, and then sometimes partners overseas. But I think her name is Robin Garland, interviewed 3,000 kids.
Wow.
Herself over a long period of time. Ugh.
Any buddies of yours also involved in the process?
Not really. I mean, I knew Michael from casting calls in L.A. I hadn't ever met Jake because I think Jake lived in somewhere else. I don't know where at the time, and would fly in or drive in to San Francisco or something for auditions. But I'd seen all of the kids that lived in LA and worked in LA. There's in the casting tape that they have, they pan through 10 of the kids, and I knew all of those kids by name. We'd see each other after school almost every day.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that it becomes a small club in a way, as you're all hitting the same auditions, because clearly if you're going out for something and it's that early in the process, you're going to be out there with other kids your age, other kids that kind of look like you. I've heard from actors before where they're so used to going into a room and there's 8 bald guys with glasses because that's what they're looking for. So they get to know their fellow types.
Yeah, and you start a little club for all the bald guys with glasses, and you get together. Yeah, 100%. Actually, the casting calls there were a lot fewer children actors then than there are now. But the casting rooms would usually have multiple castings going on at once, and I'd see all the kids from about 6 to 16 at different moments. We'd all be going through the process of whatever the latest television show is or film is or whatnot. So yeah, met most of them. It was nice too. There wasn't a lot of competition either. We weren't there in the Got Talent capacity. You know, we were all peers. There wasn't infighting. There wasn't dogging the other kids across the room. It was just we were sitting down. There was probably Pokemon cards on the floor and people trade. It was an after school program.
3,000 kids are there, and then it gets whittled down to just you three. You, Jake, and what was his name?
Michael, yeah.
Michael. I don't want to leave him out. But he doesn't have a documentary like you do, sir. So
it's true.
We'll just...
fair enough. Fair enough.
Well, what was he in, though? He did actually go on to have a career,
He did.
Right?
He was in Almost Famous. That was, I think, his biggest film role. He was fantastic in that. What else? He was in a movie Sky High, which I want to say was with Tim Allen. I don't remember that film. I didn't see it. But he's been doing good work. He's the one of the three of us that's still actively an actor, an artist, as it were.
Yeah, right. Because Jake had to fall out.
Jake was done.
The business.
But that's something about Star Wars. So it's hard to get roles after you are in Star Wars, unless you go in as Samuel L. Jackson or Ewan McGregor and Natalie Portman. You have to have an established personality, a career.
You're right. It doesn't tend to make stars as much as it, I think, kind of puts and elevates stars that already have something going on. I mean, if you look at Harrison Ford, he had already been in American Graffiti.
Yeah.
So I know, Jim, you're smirking like, I don't know, but
Star Wars made his career. Nobody knew Harrison Ford from American Graffiti. Nobody.
That's true, but then he went on to continue working with, Lucas, Spielberg, whatnot.
I think the thing that really propelled Harrison Ford's career was getting that Indiana Jones role, because then it was impossible to typecast him as Han Solo anymore, because he just owned both of those roles.
Oh yeah,
and so it was just it was a display of his masterful acting that I think really pushed him. But if he got stuck with just Star Wars, I don't know. I don't think his career would have been as big. It was Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I don't think it was. I don't think
he
it
could
was
have been
Star Wars.
spinning his wheels, getting nothing but space pirate roles in films for the rest of his life.
Yeah, and then he did
Indiana Jones.
and he did Blade Runner, which was kind of that smart indie, like legit sci-fi. So yeah, he did get a lot of opportunities, I think, to well deserved, no question, but to show his range and show his abilities.
Yeah, well, even Harrison Ford didn't get to do lines with Natalie Portman at Skywalker Ranch. So
that is true. That is true.
It's true. And being Indiana Jones is almost as cool.
Right.
Hey, you talk before we get into Natalie. You talk in the documentary about wearing your jean jacket, and I was curious. I mean, I know that for actors that is oftentimes a strategy, what to wear to the auditions, especially if you're doing a screen test. Did they give you any instructions as to what to wear or what not to wear? Do you remember that?
No, zero. They didn't. They didn't ask. Yeah, that was also, coincidentally, I think that was my only jacket at the time, but it felt right. It's like you're going to be a little engineer kid who's kind of, going to be Darth Vader. I was like, this works. This is good.
So you decided not to wear the Darth Vader helmet, right?
I didn't wear the Darth Vader helmet. Yeah, I think that they might have actually said something about that. It's like, please don't come up dressed as Darth Vader.
Or no Jedi robes.
We want you to look more like a slave.
Right.
To start, and then we'll get you the helmet later.
Like the Saturday Night Live audition tapes bit with Norm Macdonald as Burt Reynolds auditioning for Darth Vader. He wears that little helmet. You show up like that. I don't know.
With a bolo tie.
Everyone else out. With a bolo tie.
Yeah. Gosh, should have a bolo tie. That would have played.
So take us. I know you were just a kid, but can you take us a little bit through your memory of that day and showing up to the ranch, and when George came into the room, and when you were working with Natalie, and were you hanging with the other kids at the same time? What was it? What was going on that day?
Oh yeah, I could probably take you through that pretty much minute by minute. It was 20 something years ago now, but
yeah.
How well would you remember it if you went to Skywalker Ranch? It was.
Well, if you go with Jimmy Mack, you don't remember much. Let me tell you. The day after.
That's a long story.
Is that okay? Okay. Did you met some Ewoks and you got to drinking? Did you? That's all right. We're done. We'll go. I'll meet you there. Okay, I have to hear that story actually.
Well, tell us yours. Yours is better. So
yeah, we'll start with
you show up at the ranch.
Show up at the ranch. Okay, yeah. Took a plane, took a limousine, met the two boys. Had a great time meeting them. It was fun because we were, as I said in that documentary, I think we were all going to Star Wars together. Yeah, it felt like the kids must have felt walking into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory.
Yes.
It's a golden ticket moment, and I don't think I met George immediately. We got there at night. They showed us to our rooms, which was probably the most luxurious thing I've ever done in my life, was stay in one of the many rooms that George has on his estate. And slept in the morning, woke up early, and went out to breakfast. And there at breakfast, sitting around the little table with George Lucas. And George is trying to, in his kind of sort of mild, glum, almost sort of this way, explain who Anakin Skywalker is. And it's like, he's a kid, and he's from Tatooine. You guys know what Tatooine? Okay, good. He works, and he's a slave, and he's a little dirty, and all this. And Natalie comes into the room, and I don't remember anything else that George said, because this is the most impressive person that I've ever seen. She's huge. Like, first of all, like having her come and sit down, just that she looks directly at you. And as a kid, I would always notice people that are willing to actually make eye contact with children is sort of unusual. And she sat down and looked directly at you. And of course, that's Medusa, that petrified. And then getting to know the woman, and that she's brilliantly intelligent. She was there amidst, I think, studying for her either SATs. I think it was her SATs that she would have to leave the audition or the screen tests and go back to her room to continue studying for the SATs so she could get into, I think, Harvard it was. And yeah, brilliant, extremely talented, really uncommonly kind person. So yeah, George Lucas was not really a part of the my trip after she was a part of the trip.
Well, so art sort of imitates life. So it was not a stretch for you doing the scenes to kind of play up that angle that there's something. You could look, you could be cynical about it and say, oh, it's this, a teenage girl and this, prepubescent boy and blah, blah, blah. But I like to think that that Anakin through the Force understood that he was meeting somebody who was going to be a big part of his life.
I like that a lot more than yes.
Than just the horny 10-year-old. I mean, yes. I mean,
which is weird, and it was also, for the record, not my experience of meeting Natalie either. Mine was much more like what you're saying. Obviously, I was tapping into the Force at that moment.
Yes,
you were. She has a lot of stage presence too. This person, she's a very impressive performer, and anyway, I like your.
Well, I think Natalie is one of those with just such a raw, natural beauty. I mean, she just epitomizes to me movie star. She's like Audrey Hepburn. She just, I mean, I've never seen her actually in person, but you see her, just casual photos you might see online and places that she has that natural beauty. And it's great to hear that there's a nice soul, behind all of that. So when you were auditioning, were they in doing the screen test? Did they put you all three of you boys like in a room together, and then you kind of just one went into the room, and then you came back, and it's like, hey, how'd you do? What was it like? I mean, or were you kept in separate quarters?
That's kind of my favorite part of this story that nobody's ever asked me or anybody, and nobody really knows. The sound studio that we all went into was this really cool set, like half done sort of Star Wars set. And George directing, I think all the producers, the room was full. There was gaffers and best boys and all these things. Everybody was at work. It was a full production. And we did that one scene with him sitting on the table. And those we did alone with Natalie, and the others would be on break or having snacks or whatnot. And then there were other scenes that we actually did together. So it wasn't just that one scene that you saw in the making of thing. I think there was about 3 of them. One of them being saying goodbye to Kitster or Kitster. I think it's Kitster.
Yeah, Kitster.
I think I don't remember there being a T in that, but maybe that got changed.
Oh, trust us.
There is a T.
There is a T.
Confirm.
Okay. I'm pretty sure on the sides that I got there was no T. I was like Kitster. That sounds like kiss her. That's weird.
I wonder if that's where George got it. He loves playing around with the phonics.
He really
when he comes
does.
Up with his names.
That's what it is. It's all that mythology he's been reading.
Yeah.
That scene, and then saying goodbye to Shmi.
Mm-hmm.
Will I ever see you again? That scene.
That's a big
those were the 3, and so those 3 scenes, we would come in and we would pair off, and I think I played Kitster for Jake, and Michael played Kitster for me, and so on and so forth. And it was fun because we actually got to work with the other boys, which was a lot of fun. And the original plan, I think, had been to whoever. He would cast Kitster out of one of the 3 of us, and then later realized that wasn't a good idea for whatever. Well, 1, because we look too much alike, and 2, because you don't get to be in but we'll give you 1 line. Maybe that. I mean, I would have taken it.
All right, I got a question, and maybe I'm giving. I actually have a 9-year-old son, so I'm curious, since you were playing opposite each other. Were you able to I don't want to say steal, but were you able to learn or think about the way or apply some of the ways that the other boys were delivering some of the lines and go, oh, I like how he did that. Maybe
or take
I'll
a different
that.
approach.
Or exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I believe so. Yes. The normal answer is when you're working with anybody, you're working with them, right? And you're making each other better in the scene, even at that age, even without having the acting classes. That is something that just happens normally in a scene. You are made better by the people around you. Mm-hmm. In that case, Jake had a hard time remembering his lines, so I don't really remember looking at him and going, "Wow, that's good. I'm going to use that." Mm-hmm. But I bet you that if he did something that was really neat, I would have gone, "Wow, yeah, okay, man, I need to pay attention here. This kid's doing a great job." I don't remember any moment specifically, though.
Well, the moment we remember with you is that "Are You an Angel" scene, because we all got to see that in the documentary. And there is definitely a different approach you're taking to it. And it comes off as cooler and more mature. And a lot of fans really appreciated your take on the character. And I've heard over the years people saying, I would have preferred to have that kid instead of Jake. Now, my question to you is what is your memory of how you approach that scene? Did you say to yourself you were going to be cool and maybe have a little bit more of a confident air about yourself as opposed to Jake's maybe more playful nature?
I considered the character as best a 9-year-old boy can do so. Jake went in being Jake, which was really effective, and he did a really good job being Jake as Anakin Skywalker. For me, I was playing the part as I saw it. I saw this kid being a dusty boy from Tatooine who was enslaved and who lived in dirt and misery and oppression, and probably had with a mother who had likely been abused as a slave as well. And I was thinking about all of those things as I was sitting in that little junk shop, and this beautiful woman walks in, and I say that line, "Are you an angel?" And the other side about that is like those lines are not the easiest lines to deliver authentically.
Yes.
So there was my feeling about it, which was to play it in a dark, mature sort of a way, coupled with the fact that you can't really do that with lines that are so lighthearted, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's the character that you saw me give was what I thought Darth Vader's younger self was in his mind and in his body, coupled with the "gee golly, hi, how are you guys?" Like that kind of the character on the page.
I got a theory about the "Are you an angel" line, and again tapping into this Force thing. I think that what Anakin was reacting to was he was at even then having visions that he didn't understand of his future. And in his little mind at the time, he thought that these might have been angels that were coming to visit him or something like that. He had this image of this beautiful young girl that, but he didn't realize what he was actually seeing. Anybody buying that?
I love it. I think it's
great. She walks in and she's clearly off the charts compared to the other people on Tatooine, She may be a Coruscant 7, but she's a Tatooine 10. And that, I think, that takes little Anakin by surprise, where he, just flat out said, "Are you an angel?" Because he doesn't believe it. He can't believe it. Now, I like your take, though, Devin, because it's more of a realistic take on what a slave would be, on somebody who's living a life of oppression and being used as a good, it's not so happy-go-lucky, I wouldn't think.
That was my interpretation. I get what George was going for. I think I understand the character that he needed to have the boys start out with in order to, but also this was not explained to me when I was a child. None of us had any idea what his idea was. He just said, "Go."
Just go. There was no direction.
No, there's no direction.
How many chances at it did you get?
Oh, hours. We were in there all day. You see the one clip, you see the one take. He did minimum 20 with each of us on each scene. It was a whole day of shooting. It wasn't a one shot like, okay, great, cut, that's great. And it was a serious day in the office. What
do you remember of George? Not just your interaction with him, but the way others maybe in the room were treating him, talking to him. Because there's a lot of there's a lot of talk about, George and how he's, how his people, respond to him and all of that. What was your impression?
I'll tell you, well, I can't speak to the interactions between him and his people, but I remember having to chase George, wanting to know more about the character, wanting to know more about the scene, and having to kind of go and find him and sort of feel like I was trying to get out of him his ideas, his direction. I wanted to have a relation. I wanted him to direct me, to tell me what he wanted. And I remember a bit of frustration that I had to work
as you talk to the bathroom stall door.
He's like, Devin, I'll meet you out there. I'll meet you out there in a few minutes. He's like, no, but George, okay, but I just want to say, what on earth is an angel? Like, seriously, no, you got to tell me.
Well, you're in great company because Mark Hamill was doing the same thing on the set of the original Star Wars, and presumably throughout, I think his work on all three films was always pestering George for more information, more character. And, I think George would just occasionally throw him a bone here or there, but, for the most part, it was, a lot of times it was just up in his head, or he didn't think it was necessary. He's famously called, he's famously known as not being an actor's director, as they say.
Well, he's not a very hands-on director, no. And there's a number of those in Hollywood. It's not just George either. There's certain directors that are very good with actors. Actually, you're talking about brother director or brothers in cinema, like me and my brother. I'm trying to remember. There are famous director duos, maybe the Coen brothers, Joel and Ethan Coen.
Oh, the Coen brothers, and then
one of them is very good cinematographically. One is very good working with actors, and they do that together. I think that's really cool. But that is a different skill set, And George is very much in the aesthetic. He's brilliant at the aesthetic. Yeah, not really so much with the people and the explaining what he's doing.
What was your feeling when you left the audition? Did you feel like you just left it all there on that studio floor, that there was nothing more you could have given? And did you have a gut feeling, or did you think this could go either way? You didn't want to get your hopes up. What?
I was trying not to get my hopes up, but I felt like I nailed it. I had a really positive reaction from everybody that was there when in the scene where, and so I'm much better at drama. I've always been much better at drama when I was an actor. I never got a part on a sitcom. I got parts in dramatic movies and television shows.
You're a serious dude. I can tell just knowing you for a half hour.
I take myself very seriously as well. But man, I there's always more that I would have wanted to do. Absolutely. I felt really good about it. I really felt good about the scene when I was saying goodbye to Mother in the shot.
Who paid? Did you have a stand-in for that? Someone that played the mother, or were you just doing it?
Oh no, I think it was actually the actress. I think it was actually the woman playing
Pernilla August.
It might have been. If it wasn't her, it's somebody that looked exactly like her. I saw the movie and I was like, oh, it's yeah, right.
Oh, how interesting.
I believe that she was there. It would have been great to have those shots in the making of. Those were fantastic. But, like being able to do that scene and being really emotional, and it's like, am I ever going to see you again? And being a 9-year-old, that was what I was good at as an actor. Like, oh my God, Mom, am I ever going to see you again? And having the room all kind of like everybody getting sort of uncomfortable and emotional and stuff. And that felt good. I left feeling like I got him.
Yeah.
I made them cry. I got it.
Yeah.
But also not getting the hopes up, yes.
Because we're only treated to a snippet of your audition. The line that I think makes it such a drastic difference from Jake's take is when you say, "I won't always be." Jake has this, she's, you're just a little boy, or what the line is, and he's like, "I won't always be," kind of like that, and you kind of have this almost like, "Yeah, sweetie, but I won't always be." I mean, there's a little bit of this. Well, wait till you see me in 10 years, I'm going to look like Hayden Christensen.
You got to understand that Jake went into this audition being like he was 9 years old. But I was 9.
There are 9-year-olds, and then there are 9-year-olds.
I had a much darker idea of the character, and he was playing Jake, and I was playing the kid who was going to turn into Darth Vader, and I was like, "I won't always be." He's like, "Oh my god, I know what that means." And again, I gave a variety of takes. I think that they liked that one the best, or that was the funniest. That was definitely the most over the top cartoonish thing I probably did on those interviews. I won't always be. Yeah.
Yeah, you still got it.
Oh man,
you still got it.
Send me back, man. Send me back.
So you walked out of there feeling good.
Oh yeah.
And then you had to wait. The wait must have been torture. And then the results.
In my mind, it was months I had to wait, but then I was kind of informed, like, no, I think it was about a week, and I'm like, wow, that was a really, really long week, and torturous, absolutely, because am I going to go back to Tatooine and continue to be a slave, or am I going to go and be a Jedi? That was really what was at stake for me in my life. So, yeah, that was a long wait.
And they were. I'm assuming they called and they talked to your mom, and was it your mom that gave you the news, or did they actually speak to you?
No, they called and they talked to my mom and conveyed to her, I think I was at school at the time when they called, and conveyed to her what they wanted her to let me know. And it was the same sort of stuff that they had already said on set, it was more of we interviewed so many kids. You were really good. You're really good at this. You can really do this. But even then, I think, even at the casting, I have a feeling that they already sort of knew that George kind of immediately knew who he wanted. And I have a theory, and it's purely conjecture, but I really do kind of believe that George knew who he wanted for the role before we even got up there for the auditions. And he seems like that kind of writer too, and this is not a bad quality in a writer. You have such a clear idea of what that person looks and sounds like. Well, and when I saw Jake, that was the kid.
I want to get to, we're going to talk about your book that you have, but because you're an author and you're a storyteller in your own way, I would assume, I've never written a book. I would love to have written. I don't ever want to write one, but I'd like to have written a book.
A lot of writers like having written books.
Right, exactly. But just curious, I mean, you can kind of maybe relate to George in that sense, because as you're writing, you have to picture these characters, right? So if you were casting a movie based on your book, you would have a pretty concrete idea?
I would expect so. I think that the way that George's films come out, there's a very clear idea of what he wants, regardless of whether or not it's received well or not. The visual representation of his ideas are absolutely extraordinary, and some of the greatest, aesthetic filmmaking I've ever seen in my life. So I think that that's true. I can't empathize with him as a writer in that way. I have a different experience of working with actors. Also, consider that. How many things would have been on his mind? How much time would he really have wanted to spend on casting this kid? He sees the kid, you look right, you sound right, let's do it. It's like, but we have another option. Okay, well, we'll do a screen test, but that's the guy I want. Yeah? Yeah?
I think you're nailing it, Devin. I think that this sounds like the George that, we've studied over the years. I think he is very decisive and knows what he wants and goes after it with it. Right. That's right.
That's what he's always done in all of his films.
Yep. You can't be wishy-washy. That costs money, especially when you're financing it,
So Jake just had these characteristics and qualities that in George's mind fit the character so well that he just had to run with him. And I mean, you could have shown up and been the greatest actor that he'd ever seen, but if you don't fit those particular qualities, then it's just a matter of formality.
In so much of the press that George did around the time of Episode 1, throughout the prequels, he always came back to this idea: I wanted to show how this sweet, innocent, wonderful little boy grew up to become the dictator of the galaxy. And I think that even with Hayden in Episode 2, he seemed so reluctant until Revenge of the Sith, and really the second half of Revenge of the Sith, to show that turn. And for a lot of fans, it felt a little too quick. And so we were always surprised. Why weren't the seeds planted in the performances of this turn? Circumstances planted the seed, but it almost was like George never wanted to give the performer, the actor, the go-ahead to start showing it in the performance.
From the writer point of view, what I believe George was trying to do, what he had in his mind, is Star Wars is the Skywalker saga, right? But really, it's a tragedy. It's the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker. And in mythological stories, you don't start with a character that is compromised. You start with a character that is completely untouched by time and circumstance, and then you go through this massive process of changing them, and that's the tragedy. That's the wholly formed arc. So looking through that lens at what George did there, I see it. I also think that you're right about watching Hayden's having to being like kind of reel in this dark side thing. I think I've heard Hayden say that before. I think that Hayden did a great job working with what he had to do. I noticed, I kind of wondered, he has this really interesting speech pattern. I sort of wonder, and I feel like I could ask you guys, because I think you know more about Star Wars than I do, if he was kind of trying to plant the seeds of James Earl Jones. Was that a thing?
It's been mentioned. It's been mentioned. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There was.
So he's trying to do that, and he's trying to pull back the darkness. That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, if George Lucas wanted to feature some foreshadowing in the Phantom Menace, I could see you coming through with something like, you're behind a sandcrawler choking Kitster and just like strangling him, I could see you would be the man. Jake could never pull that off. You would be the man for that.
I think you're right. I think the dark side was strong with me when I was 9.
All right, so you this is 97, right? I want to just make sure I kind of have my words right. Does that sound right to you?
That's about right.
The film came out in May of 99, so this has been 97. So you've got a year and a half, 2 years before the film comes out. Was there a period where you did you put it out of your mind, or was that whole time from 97 to the film coming out, did it keep coming back to you, or did you have kind of this reprieve from it until the trailer?
I don't remember the reprieve. There may have been some period of time where it was kind of out of sight, out of mind, but it really didn't leave me, no. Because I was still acting at the time. I continued to act for a while after that, and I was still working, and I would run into Michael and Gerano every now and again in casting rooms, and it was ever present, but it didn't take a whole lot. Well, I don't remember a lot of time passing between that and then when, Weird Al Yankovic's song comes out and Pepsi starts to brand with the thing, and it just all went off the charts. And the hype started, gosh, when did the hype? It must have been 6 months before the movie came out.
Easily,
or a year. So I don't know. It was fresh in my head.
The hype never ended for us, but for sort of mainstream media, at least 6 months before, for sure.
Yeah.
And you can't go anywhere. You go into the Target store, it's Star Wars plastered all over the place. You turn on the TV, it's constantly Star Wars. But even going into it, were you still planning on going to the film and watching it as a fan?
Of course, I wouldn't miss it.
And did you? And did you?
Yeah. I didn't go opening day. I couldn't do that. But Yeah, first couple weeks I went and saw it. I loved it. I thought it was great. It was heartbreaking too because I really wanted to be in this and I thought I would have been great at it. But I saw it and I loved it. I am a huge Star Wars fan, and I still enjoy the movies, of course.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, the film did arrive with a fair share of criticism. And a lot of it was targeting Jake Lloyd's performance.
Yeah.
He even gained the nickname Anakin Skywalker. And Jason's showing I believe this is the Ron Howard.
This is the Ron Howard letter that went to.
This is the letter. I had just found out about this.
Yeah, to the writer of the story. The story was called Buzz Wars Episode 1, and this ran in Newsweek, and it was sort of a review. And Ron Howard really calls out, I think it might have been, Jim, this story where the Anakin Skywalker name might have been at least thrown out there. But there was, and Ron Howard says, as someone who was acting professionally at an early age, I can assure you that 9-year-old Jake is quite capable of reading, understanding, and feeling the full humiliation of a piece like that. He may not be able to comprehend the reason that it was printed, however, but then obviously neither can I. Maybe someone from your editorial staff should try and explain it to him.
I love Ron Howard.
Yeah,
what a champion.
For sure. And I can't think of anyone better to represent child actors than Ron Howard, because he's reinvented himself so many times, from a child actor to an adult actor to an incredible filmmaker. So yeah, I love reading this. This is such a great example of how to really take it to somebody who, without being over the top. But Jake was greeted with a lot of criticism. And I agree with Ron Howard that there are limits. It's still a kid, and whether you like it or you don't take it out on the kid. And but was there? And I debated. Devin, I've been thinking about talking to you for several days when I found out we were going to be chatting with you, and this question keeps coming to my mind. And I hope you're not offended of me asking, but I have to ask: was there a human part of you that, for a second, took some satisfaction in the reaction, the critical reaction to the movie and or Jake's performance?
Oh yeah,
even for a second.
Word,
Schadenfreude.
Yeah. I'm sure that there is some part of me that felt at least a little vindicated because I felt stepped on, not getting the role. I was like, really, I didn't get it. And it was my first time learning that being in film it's not a meritocracy. Yeah, I didn't know that. I thought as if you went in and you tried the hardest and you gave it your best shot, and you really nailed the thing, then that would, and in this case, that didn't happen. And so, sure, I expect there must have been some moment where I was like, well, at least I didn't get it because I was bad. I think that's more what the actual answer from me would be. I was relieved that I didn't lose because I wasn't good enough. And then it was also heartbreaking because I knew the kid and he was lovely and amazing, and then everybody started being horrible to this kid that I thought did a great job. If I'm a big enough 9-year-old to say, well, I would have been great, but he did a really good job too, and then to have everybody else printing this horrible nonsense about a child's performance, like that was a little disillusioning.
Yeah.
Could you relate with Jake and the experience that he had going to school and having to deal with razzing and hard times from his fellow classmates?
Oh, heck yeah. I went to school in South LA. That was normal even if you weren't in movies.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, no, I got teased. Once people found out, because I didn't really share that very readily.
Yeah.
But it didn't take long for it. Somebody found out, and then everybody found out that Devin was there. And,
Was it the DVD release with the bonus documentary? Was that what sort of outed you, or did that happen before? Because this is at the beginning of the internet. The late 90s. We were still on dial-up back then.
No, the DVD didn't come out until like 6 years after the Phantom Menace.
Right. So I'm saying prior to that, how were you outed? Because again, the internet was sort of its infancy.
There was a featurette that had been played somewhere. One they did, I think, 2 different versions of that making of, and I don't know when and where they came out. I think one of the feature outs came out in 99 or 2001.
Yeah, StarWars.com.
Yes, that's
Star
right.
Wars.
The beginning.
That's what it was. Yeah. Okay. The making of whatever that was. That came out.
I totally
that
forgot
became
about
a
that.
thing.
Yeah.
But as far as the school goes, some friend finds out and then says to somebody else in confidence, and then the whole school knows, and then half of them don't believe you, and then the other half, dial up online, and in 30 minutes have got on to StarWars.com.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Did you show him your autographed picture of Natalie Portman? Be like, you don't believe me? Do you believe her?
Yeah. I should have got one of those. I used to have a photo of me and George Lucas standing there, and I don't know where that went.
Does he look really uncomfortable? I love George Lucas with people.
He's really good with kids too. I mean, he's not good at directing
I can see
them,
that.
but he's a really wonderful dad. He was a really kind man and very kind to me and all of us. Just as soon as the camera went on, he didn't kind of like close off and became uncomfortable.
I could totally see him being more comfortable with kids.
Totally. I've seen it. I've seen it. I can definitely confirm George is great with kids. He's much more comfortable with them than adults, it seems.
So did the behind the scenes stuff, whether it was online or on the DVD, did it come as a complete surprise to you, or were you aware that was something that was probably going to see the light of day at some point?
It hadn't really crossed my mind, but I was aware of the fact that there was a making of crew around whenever we were doing anything. They were following us around. I don't know if I expected the documentary to come out or not, but I put it together when it did. Like, oh, right. All that footage. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
As Jim pointed out, it came out 6 years later. So now all of a sudden you're getting your driver's license practically as this stuff is coming out. Did you go through a phase where it was like, hey, check this out, man. This is me. I'm doing Star Wars here. I'm auditioning for Star Wars with it. Did it ever get to a place like that for you, where you could have fun with it with your friends?
Oh, yeah, it was fun. It was fun to do with my friends. But that's with your close friends when you're watching. You're going to go watch the newest Star Wars, and then somebody goes like, "Hey, remember when Devin was this big and adorable?" And then you all go like, "Oh yeah, okay, let's watch the thing." And they all look at you and go, "I won't always be." And then you have to, and that's funny for a day. And so yeah, they have the best sense of humor about it as I can, certainly.
But not getting the role, is that what really forced you out of acting, or did you just kind of outgrow it?
No, more of an outgrow sort of a thing. That was, as I said, disillusioned a little bit, kind of changed my perception of what I was doing. That might have been a coming of age moment for me. Other things really motivated me to stop. One is I needed to take a break. I needed to go. I wanted to homeschool. I got to. I stopped acting because I just got role after role after role playing the same kid. As I was saying earlier, I have a flair for the dramatic performance, and so I would play an abused child in everything. And it's acting, but at the end of the day, it's emotionally taxing, especially for a child to have George Lucas, or no, sorry, what was the other one? Clooney. Clooney's like holding me, trying to rip me out of the hands of this man who's screaming at me on the set of ER, and every other thing that I did was just like that. It was always being manhandled, being screamed at, being hit, being hurt. And yeah, it's film. But I was 10,
gets old
12. It does. And I got typecast.
Typecast is the put upon, abused child. I mean, in the one sense, it speaks to your talent, because that is not an easy thing for a kid to sort of make believe and imagine. But on the other hand, I can imagine that it would be terribly, terribly draining emotionally. When you look back on your acting career, obviously this stands out, but what are a couple other really happy memories or highlights or things that, you're going to tell your kids about someday?
Oh, wow. I love that. I hadn't really considered that. I mostly relationships that I got to have with really fine performers and directors. Moments moments that were really special. John Savage was one of the nicest people that I've ever worked with. John Savage from The Deer Hunter. He plays a creep every film he's ever been in. He plays this terrifying man. And just sitting in the backseat of a car in 120 degrees in Texas and being miserable while they're shooting a scene, we have no lines, and him doing Donald Duck impressions to make us laugh and keep us entertained the whole time. Watching Scott Bakula walk across the movie set, having noticed my mother, who was tiny and didn't have a jacket, and nobody else on set cares about. Set moms are basically scenery. And Scott Bakula turning around, walking across, going, "Are you cold?" and giving my mom his jacket. Those kind of
what a good guy.
Like real human moments.
Well, and then of course this interview.
and I was leading up to, we're going chronologically, and then finally getting to be on.
Now,
Rebel Force Radio with you guys.
You said in the documentary that you don't have children right now, but you would like to have kids.
Oh yeah.
If you're lucky enough to have kids someday, and your son or your daughter says, "Dad, I really want to be an actor," is that something that you would encourage? Would you give them that opportunity to go after their dreams? Yeah.
Sure. They got to earn it though. That's the way that it worked for my brother. He started asking when he must have been 7. I think he got his first shot when he was about 10. He had to do several plays first. He had to do school stuff. And I was like, "Do you still want to do that?" He's like, yeah, this is the best. This is the best. And then he finally got a role in something, and Mom said, "Do you still want to do this?" He said, "This is what I was born to do. Yes, give me some, So yeah, if they're really obnoxious about it enough, then 100%.
Well, and with George Lucas retired, he can't reject him.
There it is.
So that's good, because it might run in the family,
Well, the dark side certainly.
And so this is segued into you now. You're a children's book author, and do you want to talk about some current projects you have in the works and where people can find your books?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm at devonmichael.com is my writing blog. That's where I write fantasy, sci-fi, adventure stories. I'm working on a couple series at the moment. I'm not going to take up airtime telling you the plots of the books, but it's the same kind of stuff that I was trying to be a part of when I was 9 years old, sitting with George Lucas and Natalie Portman, envisioning myself being a part of this huge story and this huge world. And that's kind of been the theme of my life, now as an adult, now as a writer, novelist. Those are the stories. Those are the stories that I want to keep telling.
Well, tell us a little bit about Hollow, because I'm really intrigued by. Yeah.
Oh, you got the shot of the cover.
Yeah,
I love
it's
that.
available on Amazon. It's a really cool cover. Talking statues, magic threads, a house full of secrets.
Cool.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about it, because I've got a 13-year-old girl, and I've got a 9-year-old son, and she's starting to get into reading a little bit. She's obviously a big Harry Potter fan, as most kids that age are. But so tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, okay, Hollow is kind of for that same audience as like Harry Potter or Diana Winnie Jones or any of those authors. It's about a little wooden girl who wakes up one day suddenly alive in the attic of this sorcerer. And she learns how to do magic by taking this cat's cradle thread and weaving it through her fingers. And if she says the rhyme right, she can make magic happen. Problem is, she can't go outside, because if people find out that she exists, they're not going to react well. And then one day her father goes missing, and she has to go outside and look for him. And I want to keep working in that world. I got another book that I'm doing soon.
In the same universe or a different?
Same universe.
Yeah.
Same universe about these characters who come into their magic. It's a young adult fiction, right? So it's everybody between about 8 and 80 kind of likes young adult fiction, right?
Right.
And so I want to do an anthological series about a bunch of different characters at different points in time here. The next one's going to be about a young asthmatic woman who goes out on a ship, falls overboard, and finds out she can breathe underwater.
Wow,
that's cool.
And,
that's amazing.
Jim, you've got asthma. Try that.
You never know. You never know. You could be a mermaid, actually. You could actually
a merman.
Just didn't know that. Merman.
I love it. I love it. Do want to take your temperature on the state of Star Wars right now. I'm wondering if you're watching shows like Mandalorian or Bad Batch, or excited for the Book of Boba Fett. What's got you excited right now as a Star Wars fan?
Man, I remember talking to my brother a few years ago now, when we found out, 5 years ago, we found out they were making the new movies, and Jordan and I looked at each other and we were like, man, all we want is just give us the Boba Fett story. We would make such a good movie.
Yeah.
I am so excited for the Boba Fett storyline. Mandalorian I've watched several times. Clone Wars, of course, and Bad Batch subsequently. I love the universe. I have my opinions. What's the most fun thing about going and seeing movies, right? You go into the theater, you come out with your friends, and you look at the other person, you're like, cinematography was shit. You know, or I hate this actor. This actor was great, and that's the fun you do. And you have your opinions. Yeah, right. This is great. This is fine. Of course, there's a line when you start printing hate stuff about children. You know, but that's the kind of crowbar generation.
You get a nasty letter from Ron Howard, is what happens.
He's exactly right, and he's waiting.
Yeah, he's just waiting.
Time, so be careful.
Right.
But I love it. I love the universe. I'm excited about everything that comes out, man.
Well, we've just got a couple more questions for you, and these aren't just ordinary questions. These actually come from the Jedi Master himself, Yoda. It's a little thing that we like to call
the Yoda Questionnaire.
Thank you, Richard Cheese. That's the legend, Richard Cheese, with the Yoda Questionnaire theme song.
Hanging up, by the way.
I know. No bad impressions here. So
right now,
right, and there are no wrong answers. That's the beauty of the Yoda Questionnaire. So if you're ready, we're just gonna hit you with a couple of these.
Give me.
All right, number one. Okay. Who or what? We want to be inclusive here. Is your favorite Star Wars character?
Oh man, how does one even choose? Maybe Wicket.
Wow.
Well, no, actually, R2-D2. I think R2-D2 is like the frame god. He's like the Fenris Sulfur Heimdall. He's like the Heimdall of this mythology. He's there at the beginning. He's there at the end. And he's a nonverbal character. Those are my favorite characters. I love nonverbal characters. I don't know why. But also Warwick Davis playing Wicket is just one of the better performances I've seen out of a child.
It's magic. It's magic.
Right?
It really is.
That's a great answer. Yeah.
We'll accept both. Both.
I think it's going to be, ask a writer to give you one answer. You're not going to get one, man. Like, I'm sorry. Keep going.
And I got to say,
I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that they enjoy nonverbal actors.
Oh, it's amazing.
I don't think I've ever heard
communicate, what you can manage to communicate with a character that's not saying anything is also, if it's fun for me to write. It's one of my favorite things to write. How much can you convey without actually having to waste my time, you know?
Yeah. Efficiency.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Storytelling. All right, so we're going to venture off into the dark side here. That was a light side question. Here's the dark side question. Who or what is your least favorite Star Wars character? What Star Wars character do you hate? Other than Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, I love Anakin Skywalker.
I know.
I hate.
Kitster.
Oh, jerk. I could have been Kitster.
I could have been Kitster. That probably hurts. Losing the Kitster role probably hurts more than losing the Anakin role.
It really does. I feel like I could have stolen this show, and it would have been
right. That kid should have been Anakin. That kid should have been the Kitster.
Can you imagine? That would have been a nightmare. I can't answer the question. I've spent so much energy not wasting my time hating characters. I don't actually have somebody for you.
Okay, let's put it this way. Let's put it this way though. Which character would you least like to see get their own Disney Plus spin-off series?
That's a good way of putting it.
Okay, see, the thing is, if they gave Jar Jar his own series,
here it is. He said the J word.
The only reason I could see would be because there is something really dope about it, and I would love to see Ahmed Best get another role, because I think Ahmed Best was great. I think the character was weird, but Ahmed Best was freaking fantastic. in a stupid role.
And he doesn't get the credit that he deserves for that stop motion stuff, I think. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we'll give you a soft Jar Jar on that answer. But
because if they give him a series, I think it's because he's going to be a Sith Lord, and I would watch that for days.
He's a Sith Lord. Okay. Next question is what Star Wars moment always makes you smile? There's that one scene where you just always just.
Yeah. When Luke is looking out at the twin suns on Tatooine, standing over the precipice, having that on the brink moment.
Yes.
Before he sets out on this journey, that I remember that hitting me when I was a little boy, and it hits me. It's the same every time I see it. And of course,
Very
John Williams in the background, just is the most effective scene with music I've ever seen.
Yep.
Good answer.
And no dialogue.
I thought so.
And I see how I like. Yeah.
Very melancholy.
Yeah.
All right. What Star Wars scene always makes you sad?
Oh my!
And we're not talking full on tears, but it just always gives you a little lump in the throat.
Really breaks your heart. Well, gosh, I need to look at different movies here, but Luke saying goodbye to his father at the very end of the Jedi. Yeah, when he takes the mask off finally, and they have that moment. And tell your sister. That to me, that always hit me a lot. Also, in the same sequence, when Vader is looking back and forth between the Emperor, and then in that final look back, you get a head tilt. And all of a sudden, just you finally see the sympathy kind of showing up all over this completely empty face. You see this little it's actually that gets me every time. It gets me.
Yeah, and then of course George kind of telegraphs it now with the no.
Yeah,
but
it's not nonverbal anymore.
Yeah,
I forgot about that. No,
I thought you did. I thought you did.
But
ruined a perfectly good nonverbal scene.
I only have the VHSs, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's right. Yeah. If that's what you got, Jim and we got some links for you. I'll send you some links for something else after we wrap here. If you like that. If you like that. Yeah. Okay. Last question.
Okay.
If there was a new Star Wars movie to be made, which we know there will be, but this is different. George Lucas is back as director.
Okay.
And you're in it, Devin Michael.
Nice.
Yep. George directing, you're in it. It's Star Wars. What would you like to hear the maker say to you after he says cut on your last scene? I can think of a few lines.
This is a good one.
Gosh, that'd be funny. What did you say your name was again?
That's perfect. That is.
I'm going to stick with that one.
I think it's the best answer to that question.
Also,
ever.
Equally acceptable as answers would be: have we ever met before? and are you an angel?
Are you?
Oh, that's a good one.
If you say, "Are you an angel?" That would have been totally acceptable.
I don't want to blush in front of George Lucas.
Oh man, Devin, you are awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on and telling this story. I know that it's probably not your favorite thing to talk about, but we as not just Star Wars fans, but kind of Star Wars historians, we've been at this for over 15 years now, and we love being able to document this stuff. And what a great moment to add to our canon of interviews to talk to you about this just once in a 100 lifetime experiences that you had.
Wow, man. I mean, it's just been an absolute pleasure being here. I'm just so glad you guys called. This has been a lot of fun. I'm happy to be invited to any of this kind of stuff. Honestly, it's
all right. Well, and I hope maybe there's a little bit of cathartic reaction from you to talk about this now and tell your side of the story, because ever since those documentaries came out, I'm telling you, you've had fan support. The fans do love you, and I think it's just great that you're making yourself available to the fans to hear from you and get to know you.
I love the idea of it. Coming out in the New York Times was a thing. I realized like that's a very waspish sort of arena for Star Wars stuff. So getting to come on here with you guys, I feel like I actually got to talk to Star Wars people for the first time.
Yes, that's right.
I'm so happy to be able to.
So it's like your real. It's really your first interview. Your real first interview.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually 100%.
But the website is Devin Michael. That's DEVON Michael.com. And the book is called Hollow, and it's available on Amazon. And you can check it out. It's on Kindle. There's a paperback version. So check it out and show Devin some love. And if you got young readers in the house, it might be a great, or you don't even need to be young readers. Heck, I mean, like you said, that young adult genre is great for, like you said, 8, 9 to 89.
Most of the reviews are from 30-year-olds, actually.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Devin, thanks again, man. And please stay in touch. If there's ever anything we can do for you here at Rebel Force Radio, we'd be more than happy.
Hopefully I got something to talk to you guys about soon.
We'd love to.
Great.
All right. Take care, buddy.
Thank you, Devin.
Thanks
a lot, guys. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Oh, what a fun time talking to Devin. That's talk about somebody who was there, was there at the beginning of the beginning, that thinking of that documentary series.
Mm-hmm.
But Jim, I forgot. That's right. Some of that stuff came out prior to the DVD release. It was
those web featurettes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I forgot about those myself. It's time to dust off the old DVD and take a look at that stuff. The Phantom Menace, that was the first ever DVD I ever bought. And I bought that the same day I bought my DVD player. It was a 5-disc changer. I was very proud of that thing. And I remember staying up all night digging deep into the menu and seeing all the special features on that DVD and just being blown away. What a great DVD. The beginning, if you're a Star Wars fan who might be more of the Blu-ray generation, you might want to check out the DVD for The Phantom Menace because it has the greatest behind-the-scenes making of called The Beginning, which is the making of Episode 1. And I believe you can find that on YouTube.
Is that not available on? Has that not been available on some of the subsequent releases, like Disney Plus or any of that?
No, and it's not on Disney Plus or anything.
Because I don't think they've remastered it in HD. I think that's one of the issues with it. Wow,
but it's really good. You can see Devin in there delivering the "Are You an Angel" line, and carrying on with Natalie Portman as his heart is a flutter. And and how couldn't it be? My goodness,
right?
But yeah, what a great guy to talk to, and he seems very humbled by his experience with Star Wars too, which I found interesting.
Yeah,
and a straight shooter too.
Yes, I love that. It was so real and unvarnished, and went well beyond too what was only kind of hinted at in that little 15-minute documentary. But that documentary is available on the New York Times YouTube channel, so you can check that out. If you haven't seen that mini doc, it's certainly well worth it. Check it out.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
Hey, you guys remember when all the fans of the Star Wars books were saying that we need to get beyond Luke and Han and Leia, and we got to get all past that. They're kind of old hat. All those stories have been told. Well, lo and behold, a whole slate of new Star Wars books have been announced, and it's featuring Luke and Lando and Obi-Wan and Anakin, all of these beloved legacy characters.
Yes.
And Jim, there was like I say, there was a whole suite of books that were announced, titles and some descriptions and the authors for 2022. But there was one in particular I know that really caught your attention. This book, Shadow of the Sith, by Adam Christopher.
That's right. Yeah, there were a bunch of books announced this week. You have a book called Brotherhood, which is about Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker during the Clone Wars, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, I say that because we've had countless numbers of books featuring Obi-Wan and Anakin, but they're great characters. But I'm not really feeling the buzz for that one because it's been done so many times at this point. There's another one called Stories of Jedi and Sith, and that is an anthology series for middle grade readers. And it tells, it's one of those things that tells these sort of spin-off stories or maybe different perspectives on the original trilogy. I think just last week you were kind of bemoaning those stories, the ones that put a different spin.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of those. I don't. I've got the movies. Don't retell me the movies. I've got the movies. Tell me about something that happens off camera. Now that's cool because then I know that the movie's happening over here, and then you're telling me something that's happening there.
Well, that's very well what this book could be. Epic standoffs, cunning plots, courageous action, and ruthless anger. Ruthless anger. That's kind of weird to put in a
That's the name of my third album, by the way.
Ruthless anger. Yes. I'll bet. Very ruthless. And a bunch of authors are attached to it. So it's an anthology series, a bunch of short stories that, basically at the end of the day, probably just add up to fanfic as far as its impact on the overall canon.
Yeah.
And, that's no knock on the authors or anything like that. It's just, I'm just saying that's what it is. Then you have Padawan, which is Obi-Wan struggles with his place in the Force as a young Padawan in this coming-of-age adventure. Hey. Obviously, for youngsters. Maybe your son Parker would enjoy this book.
Yeah, if it was a graphic novel. That's how you're gonna reach. That's how you're gonna reach my kid.
Oh, I get it. Yeah, he likes the pictures.
Yes, that's right.
None of those pull at me at all.
No,
but this book, Shadow of the Sith, most certainly does because it acts as a prequel of sorts for the Force Awakens, or even more specifically, for the Rise of Skywalker, because it presents the situation that we hear about in the Rise of Skywalker, but never actually see. Luke and Lando hunting Ochi, the Ochi of Bestoon, the Sith assassin, Ochi of Bestoon, and they were tracking him as he was trying to find Rey and bring Rey to Palpatine. And the track ran cold on the not Tatooine planet of the Rise of Skywalker.
Where they're having that big festival?
Yeah, the party planet. The party sand planet. Yeah. Not the sand planet with the dewbacks and the banthas.
Right.
Not the sand planet that's the Starship Graveyard. Oh. But this is the party sand planet.
Yes,
planet.
Where she helps the basilisk from Harry Potter. She heals it. Heals that big snake.
The big snake.
Yeah.
The big snake, which I believe took care of old Ochi of Bestoon. That's why the track ran cold on that planet.
There's irony there. She saves the life of the snake that took care of Ochi, which was the guy that was out hunting her down.
Oh,
yeah.
That's interesting.
It's like her little thank you. Thank you for killing the guy that was going to bring me to my creepy grandfather.
Exactly. And, for killing the guy who killed my mom and dad.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Ochi was successful. Yeah. They were able to hide Rey before Ochi discovered where she was.
Oh, yeah, because we see his ship in Phantom Menace, right? And then we see it again in Rise of Skywalker, I believe.
We see it in The Force Awakens.
I'm sorry, Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace.
Wrong trilogy, dude.
I'm thinking about Devin.
You're still locked in the interview. Yeah. But okay, so Jedi Master Luke Skywalker, haunted by visions of the dark side, foretelling an ominous secret growing somewhere in the depths of space. Ominous, Jason, I said.
Yeah.
Ominous.
Yeah. Right.
On a dead world called Exegol. So Luke was having visions of Exegol. Okay. And it's the disturbance of the Force is undeniable. And Luke's worst fears are confirmed when his old friend Lando comes to him with reports of a new Sith menace. So Lando knows. How does Lando know? Because Lando had his daughter snatched from his arms. And he's been searching the stars for any trace of his lost child.
Now,
So
why
this
would
is
why would Lando's daughter be snatched, you might ask?
Well, in the novel, they sort of explain that this is, these are personal attacks on the heroes of the rebellion.
Or is there something deeper, though?
Ooh, maybe.
Because I'm just going to throw this out. If his daughter is Janna, who we meet
which
in,
is, they kind of telegraph that.
They kind of do. Let's go find out. I'm right here. Why are you gonna go find out? He's right there.
Well, I'll tell you how we can find out. There's a book called Shadow of the Sith, and it's coming out in 2-3 years. It'll explain everything that JJ didn't. Who's this JJ you speak of, Father?
But here's what I'm thinking. So we know that Janna and Finn have this moment where they're like, yeah, I had the same experience. I also felt this awakening. So if Janna is Force sensitive, which we can perhaps assume she is,
right?
Then maybe she was taken from Lando because she was Force sensitive. Perhaps.
Wow. Well, we'll see in the book Shadow of the Sith. Coming next year, next summer. So it's going to be a long wait for this book. But I am looking forward to it because it does serve as some really, really integral backstory that we need for Episode 9. It even goes further about Ochi. You learn how he had acquired a sacred blade, promising him that it will give him answers to the questions that have haunted him since the Empire fell.
Wow.
So that Sith blade, that's interesting because a lot of people have hang-ups with that. Well, you have to be standing on the exact right spot, and why does this point to that anyway? I think maybe Ochi himself kind of etched that stuff into the blade. Mm-hmm. And that's how he knew where the Wavefinder was. So a lot of this stuff will hopefully fill in the blanks. Big time. And that's what's fun about Star Wars novels. That's what I loved about things like the early Timothy Zahn novels, Heir to the Empire, even Kevin J. Anderson's stuff, the Jedi Academy stuff from the 90s.
Yeah.
When it was like, hey, these stories aren't going to be continued on the screen. Mm-hmm. So we have to get some kind of way to satisfy our Jones for more Star Wars. And what's better than fleshing out details that we've always wanted to know about, like Luke building the Jedi Academy and any threats to the Republic, the final end of the Empire, all that stuff was explained in those early expanded universe books. And they were great. And right now we're in a place where there is no indication that any of the sequel trilogy plots and concepts and ideas are going to be continued on screen. Now, maybe with shows like The Mandalorian, that could kind of help set things up a little here and there.
Yeah, right. And it seems like they're doing this whole cloning story. This is the clone mythology. The Palpatine clone mythology seems to be unfolding in The Mandalorian a bit. And we see it in The Bad Batch as well.
Yeah, we do. I mean, at least we think we're seeing.
Right. True. We don't know.
Yeah. Nothing's really paid off. We haven't had any sort of payoff. At least with this book, we know we're gonna get stuff that will set up what we see in Episode 9.
Now
that's a safe place to play, I think, because you don't have to worry about rocking the boat because the sequel trilogy's already been told.
Yes.
So they can go balls out with the story for once, which they haven't done in Star Wars fiction since the expanded universe has been blown up.
Look at how the tie-in material just blew up between episodes 2 and 3 and telling the story of the Clone Wars before the Clone Wars series. I mean, they just talk about, really expanding the universe. They did in a big way. Something interesting about this book is that we know that there's about 30 years separating the events of Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. This book is set 2 decades after the Battle of Endor, so it's closer to Force Awakens than it is Return of the Jedi. So we're gonna hopefully starting to see some of the signs of of Luke and why he exiles himself. This is probably not going to be that story, but again, hopefully we'll start to see some of those seeds start to be planted.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this could really add some additional substance to episode 9, which I know a lot of people desire. I've had kind of fun filling in the blanks myself, just in my own headcanon, connecting those dots, but a novel is very welcome at this point, I really want that final Star Wars film to be able to acquire additional substance that it was perhaps lacking when we saw it debut in December 2019.
It's not exactly the same thing, but I do remember feeling that the novelization of Attack of the Clones did a lot to expand the relationship between Anakin and Padme, what was going on in her head, what was going on in his head.
Yes.
And it made me appreciate, I remember that summer reading the book and of course seeing the movie multiple times in the theater, but it did give me a new appreciation for the movie as I would read the book.
All of the novelizations for the prequel films were spectacular in that department, especially Revenge of the Sith, which I consider must read for any Star Wars fan. Be like, oh, I saw the movie 500 times. I don't need to read the novel. The novel has so much more.
Yeah.
And George Lucas was consulted for each novelization.
Yep.
And specifically for the Revenge of the Sith novelization. And that's some real good expansion of the story that I consider must have for any Star Wars fans.
Maybe even more so than the original trilogy novelizations, honestly.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which I love. I enjoy them a lot.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Tons of meat on the bones. And episodes 1 and 2 also, those novelizations are really strong. But that last one, episode 3, really, really important stuff. And I was so disappointed with the sequel trilogy novels, especially The Force Awakens. It was going to be written by Alan Dean Foster, a guy who had one-on-one collaboration with George Lucas over the years, most notably with the novelization of the original film and Splinter the Mind's Eye. And his novelization was as flat as a pancake, and
it didn't add anything. It was a straight up retelling.
Nothing. Straight up. Now, I will say the Last Jedi novelization added more to the story, and the Rise of Skywalker did. But there was such a desperation about the Rise of Skywalker novelization, and some things that don't really add up. And then the Last Jedi novelization expanded on things, featured more moments with Luke on Ahch-To, moments with Luke opening himself up to the Force, and you get into his head more, where you realize he recognizes his mistake in cutting himself off from the Force and all that. That stuff I would have loved to have seen explored more in the film itself, but it wasn't. And then there's also a weird tease at the end of the Last Jedi novel that kind of infers that Rey is Luke's niece, which we know is obviously not the case.
Right, but they didn't know that at the time.
No, but there's an inference in there.
Wow.
Which certainly wasn't in the film at all.
Right.
One of those turtle nuns says something about Luke's niece at the end of the novel. Now, it could have just been a front Luke was putting up. It's a facade. She's my niece.
Right.
But
there's nothing going on. She's my niece.
Yeah, May those turtle nuns, you know how they talk. Isn't she a little young for him?
Yeah. Doesn't every
What's
mob
the
guy
difference there?
introduce his mistress as his niece? Oh, she's my niece. Yeah, you know, hey, there's nothing going on.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, so that might have been Luke's story. Yeah, why is that young girl sleeping in your
hut,
empty stone hut? You know, Luke's got nothing in there. He's got nothing in there. He's got a bench with some crap on it that he folds his shirt on. And I think he's got a bed. You don't ever see it.
It's like a stone slab or something.
Yeah. It's like, geez, man. It's just a prison.
Well, he's a minimalist, you know.
Yeah.
He's one of those.
Well, you know, much like Obi-Wan,
Yes.
Luke was supposed to become the Ben Kenobi of the sequel trilogy. And you know, it's debatable in how successful that depiction was, but there's evidence there that he was that, you know, living alone in exile by himself and, you know, Spartan surroundings, no contact with loved ones or anything.
Right.
It's just the difference is Ben was on a mission.
Yeah,
Luke was going down the tubes.
Well, I mean, we all thought, you know, I mean, you go back and watch Force Awakens, and Han says, you know, some say he was looking for the first Jedi temple, and that was there was enough there to where you go,
yeah,
oh, that's interesting. Why is he looking for this first Jedi temple? He's trying to, you know, he's on, like you say, Jim, he's on a mission of some sort.
Yeah,
I can't wait to find out what mission he's on. I came here to die. What kind of mission is that? He does
say, "I came here to die."
Yes, he does. He literally says, "I came here to die."
It's been a while since I've seen The Last Jedi.
Yeah. I mean, that's a real uplifter.
I came here to die. Oh my God! I must have eliminated that from my thought, my head canon. I love using that term too.
I like that too.
It's kind of a healthy approach, I think, where you don't get bogged down in all the BS of what is and isn't canon. Just, I don't care if it was a story that was printed in the pages of Marvel Comics back in 1978. If you want to make that part of your personal Star Wars history book, then do it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Why not?
Take that Halloween special from last week. Make it, full on. That's exactly how things went down after the end of Rise of Skywalker. They turned Darth Vader's castle into a theme park / hotel resort.
Yeah.
That's exactly how that happened. Yeah. Somebody noted, they sent me an email saying that they were listening to a show from like 2017, 2018, and we had Kyle on the show, and we were speculating what happens with Vader's castle after Vader's gone.
Oh yeah,
and one of us did bring up the concept of it becoming a hotel with with Vinay as the
oh my God, we were that close.
We were that close.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, probably from the mind of Kyle Newman, of course. He's always thinking of Star Wars. So, Kyle has great Star Wars stories in his head. And I would love to sit him down in front of Kathleen Kennedy, because here's a filmmaker who understands Star Wars to its core. And Kyle was in town a couple weeks ago, and we spent the day together and went out to dinner, and he started laying down these Star Wars stories on me that he was coming up with.
Yeah.
It blows like something like every story from Star Wars Visions out of the water. Some of the stuff he was telling me. He had like 3 of them. And he gave me a lot to think about on the car ride home. But he's always like that. He had these ideas for how the sequel trilogy would go down. And I told him after he had given me his ideas, this is, years before the sequel trilogies hit the screen. And he told me some of his ideas. And I said, if they go in any other direction, I'm going to be disappointed. And little did I know that was going to be the priority, was subverting expectations.
Right.
And Kyle's ideas were steeped in the legends and chronology of Star Wars, in the history of Star Wars. It was just like rich, deep roots. And so maybe someday some of his stories will be told. You won't get me to explain them. No, sir. You have to reach out to Kyle. Maybe he'll tell you, but I'm not gonna repeat them.
No, but you know what? You can go and find Kyle online and say, "Hey, go on to Rebel Force Radio and tell us all of your awesome."
Well, just the one. Stories. There's this one about a hidden Jedi temple that gets discovered, and it's pretty neat.
Oh, cool. Hey, so those books are coming out, so you can check it out. They have a breakdown of all of them over at StarWars.com. But one thing we wanted to bring to your attention, this is very cool, is the fact that Carl Weathers, the man, the myth, the legend, Grief Karga, tweeted this: Mandalorian season number 3 begins for yours truly on tomorrow. All right. Grief Karga will be back on Disney Plus. # be peace. So
be peace.
There you go. Grief Karga, Carl Weathers, Mandalorian season 3 shooting for him begins tomorrow, and this was posted on October 12th. So assuming that this week cameras were definitely rolling. We don't know if they began rolling, but cameras have been rolling, I guess. And Carl Weathers, there he is, coming back as Grief Karga, which I'm excited about, that we're going to see more Carl Weathers. We need to. He's part of the Mando's crew.
I'm not surprised at all that he's coming back, but I am relieved to hear that they are going to stick with some continuity with the characters and situations and stuff. And the inclusion of Grief Karga is, don't give him grief. He's Karga.
Good
and
grief.
He's going to be back. You know, we know we're going to get that continued continuity because it's inevitable. The rumors will be popping up saying that Season 3 of The Mandalorian is going to go through vast different shifts. You won't even recognize the show.
That is such a great point. Everybody that's listening to this show, yes, listen to what Jimmy is saying. Get ready, strap in for all of the clickbait, all of the headlines, that it's going to be so different from any other season. You're not, like you say, you're not going to recognize it, and then you're going to be emailing us. You're going to be posting on the official Rebel Force Radio Facebook group. Did you see this? This is you're going to ruin it. This is it. It's finally going to be, they're taking this great thing, The Mandalorian, and they're going to flush it down the toilet. That's what we heard last year.
Yes. So always take those rumors with a grain of salt and listen to us to hear what we think about it.
I say a grain of sand, a grain of Tatooine sand.
It gets everywhere. But here's something to look out for this weekend, folks, because The Mandalorian is in front of the cameras right now. What we have to look out for is the potential for Hollywood crews to go on strike starting as early as next week. And if that happens, that will undoubtedly shut down the production of The Mandalorian season 3.
What are they belly aching about now? Is this COVID stuff?
No, this is, no, not so much. The Hollywood crews are looking for a new contract. Their union wants a new contract with the producers. And when I say crews, I'm talking about guys who work on the set. I'm talking about, everyone from cameramen to lighting to dudes who work the knobs on the volume. I'm talking about, maybe even guys like, I don't know if Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau would be. I think
they would be
union,
management. I don't think they would be union guys, at least not in terms of production.
Right. Yeah, you're probably 1,000% right. But the union has been bargaining with producers for a long time. And over the summer, they reached an extension in the talks. But now that deadline is rapidly approaching. It's going to happen Monday. And what the union's looking for is this, the normal stuff: better working hours, safer workplace conditions, and better benefits. So talks stalled over the summer. And now, with the deadline rapidly approaching, they are talking. There is, at this point, while we record this show, there's been really no indication of any progress. And so I imagine negotiations will be going on fast and furious over the weekend. And the producers, they're biting bullets hard because Hollywood production had been halted for so long as a result of the pandemic. And so these guys have got to get the machine back on the tracks. And if there's an industry-wide crew strike, that will stop every production in Hollywood. It'll just bring it to a complete halt.
It's going to be the entertainment equivalent of all of those shipping containers sitting off the coast of California waiting to be brought into the United States with this whole supply chain issue. I mean, it's gosh almighty, the problems just keep compounding. Compounding.
It's a mess. It's a mess. So that's what we have going on right now in Hollywood. I hope these guys work out a deal in good faith rapidly, and we won't have any delay in Mandalorian Season 3. Now, Book of Boba Fett, obviously, that's probably pretty much in the can at this point, ready to be shown right now. Might be some minor tweaks going on, sound mixing, etc. And this should not affect those type of post-production departments. These are guys who work in the set crew. They are on the stages. They are on location. These are the guys who are going on strike.
And this is American production, so it could... Hollywood. So I don't think Andor was being shot in the United States. Was that being shot over in the UK?
You're right about that. Yeah. So I think post-production is not in any danger of halting. And shows like Kenobi, Andor, and of course Book of Boba Fett, those are going to be ready to rock.
But Mando Season 3 could be affected. Yeah. And this could be a prolonged deal. Like the NFL strike back in, what year was that? They brought in all the scrubs.
It happened once in Major League Baseball. They couldn't even play the World Series.
Wow.
So... Our World Series is Mando Season 3. We need to get that, and hopefully things will be worked out this weekend. But that is a story to keep your eye on before you go off celebrating the return of Grief Karga. Carl Weathers is on the set. Whoop-de-doo. No one else is, though. There's no cameras. There's nobody.
And it'll be like as soon as they'll get the stage guys or the crew guys taken care of, then the actors or the writers will go on strike. A lot of times these things tend to, because it's like, look at the sweet deal they negotiated. All right, we're going to go on strike now.
The snowball effect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll be keeping our eye on that story, and hopefully next week we'll have something good to report from a potential Hollywood crew going on strike.
Rebel Force Radio.
You've already made that Star Wars reference.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars parody!
All right, Star Wars and pop culture. This is when we take a look at Star Wars references and when it gets brought up in things other than Star Wars. So, TV shows and that sort of thing.
That sort of thing. And it happens all the time. And you guys are always so good to tip us off about Star Wars references in popular culture at show@rebelforceradio.com. This one, I stumbled upon this one myself, and it's a 2020 special that aired recently. The Most Magical Story on Earth, 50 Years of Walt Disney World. And, it was a pretty good special. A lot of stuff, nothing really new to me.
Puffy. I mean, 2020 is on ABC, and of course, ABC is owned by Disney.
Right.
So, amazing. They covered themselves.
But Star Wars was featured a few times. There was a funny story shared by Tony Baxter, legendary Disney Imagineer.
Yeah.
Tony Baxter, who was once featured here on RFR, and you could hear his interview on our YouTube channel. But he tells a funny story about meeting with Michael Eisner while they were prepping Star Tours, the first real crossover between Lucasfilm and Disney. Star Tours, and Tony Baxter tells this funny story about Michael Eisner and his maybe unorthodox management style as they were testing out ideas for Star Tours in its earliest stages.
They walked into my area, and I noticed right away there was a child there, and it was Breck Eisner. And Michael just boldly said, "My son Breck loves theme parks." and I'm going to get his read on what you guys show me today. So my first thought was, my career depends on a 13-year-old.
And I'm sure Tony Baxter thought, give me a break.
So I pitched up Star Tours first because I figured there isn't a 13-year-old in the world that hasn't been captivated by Star Wars.
But that was the only meeting that my son was at. The credit for Star Tours goes to George Lucas and Tony Baxter and the Imagineers.
They came to me and said, would you like to do a Star Wars ride? And I said, yeah, I'd like to do that, but I want to be involved in it if we're going to do it.
It was my first flight, and I'm still getting used to my programming.
George liked the idea of combining humor and thrill, which he thought had not been done really in the theme park.
It was like, gee, wouldn't it be great if you could put a film on the front of one of the rides? You're in a vehicle, and you're flying through space, and you're being jostled around and all kinds of things. It was very realistic.
I love when George gets these multi-million-dollar ideas and he starts it off with, boy, wouldn't it be neat if...
How many billions of dollars have been spent starting with those words?
Yeah, everyone's sitting down writing down his every word.
Wouldn't it be neat?
I think, it would be kind of cool. Cha-ching.
Yeah, for sure. But so Tony Baxter talking about how initially he thought that Michael Eisner's son was going to be the barometer for his success as an Imagineer.
Yeah. Imagine the pressure.
Get my son in. He likes theme parks, says the CEO.
Well, imagine the pressure. He knows how to BS adults, but bring in a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to pitch a 12-year-old?
Wow.
Somebody get some sugar in here. You know what a little box of those nerds. You like those nerds? Yeah. Do you know what nerds are?
Nerd candy? I love nerds.
Nerd candy, right? Yeah, a little box of the nerds.
Yeah,
yeah. Get the kid loaded up on some of that sugar, and then we'll do the pitch.
I love the little boxes you get for trick or treat, and you just do shots of them. Like I love doing the shot.
Oh yeah, nerd shots.
Yeah,
maybe next week to celebrate Halloween season, you and me can do some nerd shots.
Yes,
on the show. We'll see how many we can do. It'll be like in Raiders with Marion having that drinking contest in her bar.
Yeah, that's right.
So we can turn the boxes upside down and put them
let's
down.
see who gets heart palpitations first. So this was on 2020. So Tony Baxter talking about how it was the start, and George came in and he's like, they go to George and they say we'd love to do this, and he's like, yeah. Okay, and I'm going to be involved. I mean, he wants to be a part of this. It's not just like he's going to sign, a blank check to him.
Yeah. When's the first meeting? I'm there.
Yeah.
Let's go. Imagineers. He's got a little badge. It says Disney Imagineer George L.
Right, but it's a plastic one, like when you get the fake
gift
wings.
shop.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the gift shop version.
Right.
But he doesn't care.
No.
He doesn't care. He's George Lucas. He can show up with the gift shop name tag. He doesn't care. I'm paid for this. So George always has that, the buck stops here sort of mentality. And who could blame him?
I paid for all this kind of look on his face.
Well, I mean, he sacrificed a lot to remove himself from the Hollywood system and corporate filmmaking so he can build his own Hollywood corporate filmmaking system.
Right, right.
I've become the thing I hated. But I like that clip because they very clearly give Michael Eisner very clearly gives Tony Baxter all the credit for and George Lucas for developing Star Tours together. And I noticed when Star Tours 2.0 was opening to the public, there was a little tug of war between some veteran Imagineers at Disney about, they were all trying to claim ownership for Star Tours.
Right.
And I feared that Tony Baxter was getting lost in the shuffle of all that. While, younger, more ambitious young guns were coming into the forefront and they were all trying to claim their piece of the Star Wars pie.
Right.
I felt like maybe Tony Baxter was being a little overlooked. That's why we booked him on Rebel Force Radio to begin with.
Yeah.
Was to make sure that he had his time in the sun.
Everybody was trying to lift their leg on it, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. And I know this from inside information. And so Tony Baxter's great. He's a Disney legend. And so it was nice to hear Eisner on 2020 give him and George Lucas full credit for Star Tours. And, of course, Michael Eisner's kid, who deserves most of the credit, obviously. But there's one more clip. I thought this was interesting because when the Disney acquisition of Lucasfilm was made back in 2012, we certainly heard plenty of responses from Lucasfilm employees at that time. We had Steve Sansweet on the show the day it was announced, and he gave us his reaction. We heard other various reactions from the Lucasfilm side of things, but I've never really heard how Disney reacted to the news. And Scott, the new guy there, Scott Torbridge or whatever his name is with Disney, they roll him out all the time now.
What's his
Trowbridge? Scott Trowbridge.
Yep.
Very talented and veteran Disney Imagineer who's been around for a long time. He tells a story about what it was like in the hallways once the news was spreading around the Disney campus about Star Wars becoming part of their property.
In 2012, there's Disney's acquisition of Lucasfilm.
It was an incredibly exciting day when we all found out that the Walt Disney Company was welcoming Lucasfilm into the family.
Throughout the building, you could hear people screaming and cheering as they were hearing the news.
Ladies and gentlemen, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is now open.
Walking into Galaxy's Edge was a wow. I think they're the ones that could have done the Millennium Falcon. It was extraordinary.
People, they were very pumped up to be able to sink their teeth into Star Wars, and I'm sure
it's ours.
Yeah, the creative juices just started flowing at that point, and these guys knew that they would have some great opportunities to incorporate Star Wars into the Disney parks. And here we are, all these years later, and we got Star Tours, we got Galaxy's Edge, and so much. And I'm really hoping that you and me can visit Galaxy's Edge in May.
Yep.
When we visit Anaheim for the big whoop-de-doo. And the good news is with the big ride at Galaxy's Edge, Rise of the Resistance, they are actually opening it up so you can wait in line for the thing, and you don't have to get up at 5:30 in the morning to be at the park to make a reservation on the app, which was for a while the only way you could access that ride.
Yeah, but you had to get up you had to get up at the butt crack of dawn just to get on the app.
Yeah, and you had to be at the park there too.
Oh.
So I'm not one of those guys who likes to be there when the park's open. I know a lot of grown adult men and women who their whole lives depend on it to be at the park right when it opens. Yeah, I'll roll in about 11 o'clock. But I'll be the last one out of the park. See,
right.
That's how I like
that's
to do
it. That's exactly. So when
Be
the
the
people
last
that
one out.
Yeah, when all the people leave that had to be the first ones in, that's when the party starts.
Exactly. There I am with Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
We're on to Rise. All right.
GL
we have more Star Wars and pop culture.
We do.
And this is from Kiernan. Kiernan writes at show@rebelforceradio.com. He says, on Pod Save America, former Obama speechwriter John Lovett shares a story of meeting George Lucas at a party and asking him if the Darth Jar Jar theory has any merit. Now, didn't the Darth Jar Jar, didn't that come up with Devin Michael? I think he brought up Darth Jar Jar. It's so funny.
He
now,
did.
Here we are.
That's right. Yeah.
Here we are with it. And we've never spoke about Darth Jar Jar on this show.
Yeah, I think Devin was saying he thought it would be fun if that was the subject of the Disney Plus live-action Jar Jar series.
Wow. So here it is. We've never mentioned the Darth Jar Jar theory. We just left it to the internet. We're like, okay, that's insanity. That just really needs to stay on the internet and not necessarily in our microphones. But here it is. It's coming up on the show because of Pod Save America. And if you're unfamiliar with what the Darth Jar Jar theory is, here we have, who is this guy? Former Obama speechwriter John Lovett, not to be confused with John Lovitz. This is John Lovett.
Or Lyle Lovett.
or Lyle love it. There's a lot of confusion that could be going on here. I know a lot of our listeners you're driving a car, you got your hands full right now. You can't be confused. So we're trying to make this as clear as possible for you. John Lovett, not Lyle, not Lovitz. So this public service announcement is brought to you by Rebel Force Radio and the Ad Council. Yeah. We have the Darth Jar Jar theory explanation from John Lovett, if you are unfamiliar with what this theory actually is.
There's a theory on the internet called Darth Jar Jar. This is a theory that suggests in episode 1 of the Star Wars prequels that George Lucas was setting up Jar Jar Binks, one of the most annoying characters in the history of cinema, as a villain, and that would have been revealed in episode 2. That the whole plan was to make this annoying character, but planted inside of the film were the seeds of the fact that this was actually a Sith Lord that was going to reveal themselves as the supervillain. The twist of this series, in the way that Darth Vader being Luke's father, was the twist of Empire. He talked a lot about the episodes rhyming. That was the theory. But when everyone hated Jar Jar Binks so much, he abandoned it and then introduced Count Dooku and General Grievous, and kind of the films went off the rails and there was no kind of satisfying twist.
What?
Yeah, this is why we've never spoken about the Darth Jar Jar theory on Rebel Force Radio, is because we try to steep this show in at least a modicum of integrity. Just a tiny little bit.
The Darth Jar Jar, first of all, I have absolutely nothing I've ever read or seen would indicate that George thought of Jar Jar as anything other than a heroic, or at best, at worst, comedic character. I don't think that. Now, there's a part of me that thinks, like, can you imagine if Ahmed would have been turned loose to all of a sudden turn Jar Jar into this like twisted evil version, that was just pulling the wool over everybody's eyes. I mean, it could go to a really dark, interesting place. That's not George Lucas. There's no way in heck that this was ever occurred to him at all.
How could a character that sounds so nonsensical with everything that comes out of his mouth be thrust into the role of prime antagonist?
Yeah.
Much less a darksider. I mean, even when he was functional as a senator, he was saying things like Dello Feligates.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, how are we going to make this shift to him being evil?
You could make this a contrast to Yoda and how he reveals himself at first to Luke as sort of this kind of impish, silly character, but he's not nearly as silly as Jar Jar Binks.
No.
I mean, he's still saying things like, war make not one great. Even when he's impish, he's still imparting some wisdom there.
Misa wiping them out. Misa wiping out all of them. Decent dozin. Datin, deucin, deetin, datin.
Oh man! All right, so that's the Darth Jar Jar theory.
Yeah, right. Darth Jar Jar. If you guys want to look into it, there's countless numbers of blogs that will provide you with mounds and mounds of evidence that this was possibly the direction the prequel trilogy was going in. And so this guy, Obama's speechwriter John Lovett. He shares this story about meeting George Lucas at a party, and he actually confronts Lucas.
Oh my God! Wait a minute! You're saying you get 5 minutes with Lucas, and you're going to ask him about Darth Jar Jar? That's the thing? You're going to waste your time. You're going to waste George's time.
I mean, it is a theory that's been thrown out there on the internet for quite some time. I remember I was even being interviewed by the Chicago Tribune during the sequel era. I think it was maybe just prior to The Last Jedi coming out. And the reporter asked me about the Darth Jar Jar theory. And I wouldn't even humor her. I'm like, that's ridiculous. There's nothing to talk about there. I don't think she ever printed my response to that. I thought she was going to have some fun with me and just thought all nerds talk about the same thing. But no, I take anything about Star Wars that gets reported. I put it under a great deal of scrutiny. And Darth Jar Jar just doesn't cut it. And it doesn't cut it with George Lucas when you approach him as a party, as you'll hear the Pod Save America dude explain.
I did something which was so embarrassing, which is I went up to George Lucas at just a private function to ask him a question about Star Wars lore. And I said, I don't know if you ever heard this theory before, but there's this theory about Darth Jar Jar. Is there any truth to it whatsoever? And he looked at me like I was the dumbest motherfucker on planet Earth. It was one of the most withering, like, no joy in his voice, no enjoyment of the proposition, just an entirely, his face scowled, and he just said, no. Absolute what? No, never, nonsense. And then I saw the back of George Lucas.
And he snubs him. The George just turns his back on him.
Oh, man.
Enough.
I mean, Jim, you've been in the presence up close and personal with the maker and had, a few precious minutes to ask him a question. And you also saw, the look that would come over his face
the
when
look.
he was.
I know the look.
You know what look we're talking
I know
about.
the look. Yeah. You know what he does? He gives you this up and down where he's like, he looks you like head to toe and back up again. And he's scanning you.
I like the Terminator.
Yeah. He gives up and down. He does that to everyone. You walk into his editing suite at Skywalker Ranch. As soon as you walk in, gives you the up and down. You guys,
He's looking at your shoes.
No,
he's checking the whole
sizing
thing
you
out.
up is what he's doing.
Right.
He's sizing you up. And in that split second, the memory inside his internal computer fires off a response, and it's a scowl, or George just has a blank look on his face and goes back to doing what he's doing. Okay? If you get the scowl, then you're on precious time right there. I mean, then the clock is ticking, And so but this guy at least he got a response.
Yeah.
Typically the scowl gets followed with the back of George Lucas.
He doesn't even, he's not even going to engage.
But at least he gave this guy, I think he said no to him, just flat out no,
Well,
but George
he's an
gave me
Obama speechwriter, so he's got to give the guy some, it's probably some political function or
some
something.
fundraiser they were at, $50,000 a plate.
Yeah, I better talk to this guy. Yahoo.
But he doesn't suffer fools. And so he gave him the up and down and then turned his back to him. But he did deny any legitimacy behind the Darth Jar Jar theory.
Yep.
Which some people do take seriously.
Yeah.
I had that feeling that reporter from the Tribune was very serious when she asked me that question. But I wouldn't humor her with an answer, and George doesn't humor Obama speechwriters with the answer either. It's just dumb. And I don't understand how former Obama speechwriter John Lovett considers the Darth Jar Jar theory, if it was actually executed, the Darth Jar Jar idea, that would be somehow a satisfying twist to the prequel films for this guy.
It's the I am your father moment.
What?
Misa, the bad guy, becomes the new I am your father.
You must be smoking Harrison Ford stuff. So,
oh man,
Darth Jar Jar has no weight, and we do owe him, the speechwriter, we owe him some credit for at least getting an answer.
That is true.
Now it's on the record.
Yep.
If anyone wants to talk about Darth Jar Jar, whatever, we have evidence of George Lucas shooting it down.
It's
so
G
it
level.
doesn't exist.
G
It's
level.
G level.
Yeah.
We're G
All
level.
right.
Yeah.
All right. One more thing, and we're gonna sign off.
Yeah. We've been going through a while.
Contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message after the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
Hey, Jimmy and Jason. My name is Holly, and I'm from Kentucky. I've been listening to you guys since I was 13, and now I'm 23, so quite a long time. And some of my favorite episodes you guys do is when you talk about what it was like being a Star Wars fan in the 70s, 80s, and 90s before I was born. I just think that time period is so cool, and to imagine what it was like to be a Star Wars fan when everything was so fresh and new and there wasn't so much technology just seems really cool. So I really enjoy listening to those kinds of episodes. I remember Jason has shared a lot of times what it was like going to see Return of the Jedi with his cousins, and I remember, Jimmy, you've talked about before when your aunt or your mom took you and referred to the Rancor as a Rancor, which I only refer to it as that grandmother. Now. But yeah, I would just really love to hear more episodes like that from you guys. Thank you for all you do, and I look forward to listening to you guys for many years to come.
Oh, thank you, Holly. That's great because we have some photos here of us with Holly in particular, going back. I don't know how many years. I do look like sort of your pet, Jim, in this photo. I don't know what's going on, but here she.
Pet. Like you look like Holly's pets is who you look like. She got a leash on you.
Yeah. So this is Holly and you and me. I don't know,
about a decade, 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10
Star
years
Wars
ago.
Star Wars Celebration 2012 is what I believe this picture is from.
Yeah. And then fast forward just a couple of years later, and look what we got going on. Holly getting proposed to in front of the Millennium Falcon. How do you like that?
Boy, I wish I had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Fantastic. Yeah. So I could make a joke and say, "Oh, well, maybe for my next wife," but I'm not. Snyder is stuck with me, so there's no debate about that. But
Right.
maybe I'll do something nice for Wendy at Galaxy's Edge in front of the Falcon like this. That's a beautiful thing.
Oh, yeah. You can imagine that, like, maybe this could be like you could renew your vows in front of the Falcon.
Oh, yeah. Have a man of the cloth there with you.
Right.
Dressed as Yoda. But when I saw Galaxy's Edge and saw the Falcon, Wendy just sort of stepped aside with the kids. They moved to the perimeter of the whole thing, and she said, "Just leave Dad alone for a little while here. He's having a moment." I was like laying on the ground, you know.
Yeah. That
just
was.
like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
It's there. It's life size.
So congratulations to Holly.
Yep.
And we'll be looking for our invites in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I love telling stories about what it was like in the original generation of Star Wars fandom in the 70s and 80s. And Holly says when the technology wasn't that fresh, but let me tell you, the technology was extremely fresh. Star Wars broke all the boundaries as far as how filmmaking is made, and it was the most cutting edge thing you ever saw when it debuted. And we still get vibes of that from all the way up to now with productions like The Mandalorian, which incorporate things like the volume, which is technology we never saw before. You know, we've seen lame attempts at rear projection over the years that any kid could tell is fake the second he sees it. I'm looking at you, hang gliding Roger Moore. I'm looking at you.
You're throwing daggers at Sir Roger.
Well, he's got a cigar and he's in a hang glider. I don't think so. I don't think so. But it's just the first one that popped into my head.
Yeah.
But telling those stories really makes me it takes me back.
Right.
And it keeps that whole era alive for me. And before we talked to Devin Michaels tonight, I was thinking to myself, how deep can we go into the questioning? Because he was 9 when he experienced his audition and going to Skywalker Ranch. And it's not like that was the only audition this kid went on. He went on tons of auditions.
Right.
So I'm like, maybe it just got lost to time. But then I recalled, I said, how I was 8 years old in 1977. And those memories of seeing Star Wars and the whole hype around the original Star Wars and the big pop culture explosion that came in its wake, it's still so vivid to me, those experiences and everything. So that's why I like talking about him on the show, and that's how I knew we could probably go deep into questioning with Devin Michael, because he was 9 years old and he was having a mad Star Wars experience at the time. He must remember it, and sure enough, he did.
Yeah.
So my favorite thing Devin said in the interview was when he was talking about taking the limo ride with two other kids to Star Wars. They were taking a limo ride to Star Wars. And he's not talking about the movie.
No.
Chewie, get us out of here!
Well, that's going to do it and wrap things up for this week's show. A huge thanks to our special guest in the cantina, Devin Michael. Great story. And man, oh man, what an incredible experience. I said once in 100 lifetimes. I mean, maybe once in 1,000,000 lifetime experience that he had. And was just this close. He was so close to being the Anakin Skywalker in the Phantom Menace. And you know what? Some might say maybe he ended up on the winning side of this, depending on how you define it.
Maybe he dodged a bullet.
He may have very well dodged a bullet. Someone, by the way, someone's got to mock up a little Anakin Kenner action figure with a Devin Michael head on it. Can somebody do that? That would be great. You customizers out there, we can get that over to Devin. I think he would appreciate that. Something we appreciate right here at Rebel Force Radio is if you are a supporter of us over on Patreon. That really is the complete Rebel Force Radio experience. You get weekly full show videos. So what you're listening to right now, you could actually be seeing it. You could be seeing the interview with Devin Michael. You could be seeing Jimmy Mack and myself as we record the show. That's available. Also, exclusive podcasts that you can't just subscribe to on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We're talking about RFR Comlink, the Q&A, Babu Freaks, Clone Wars Declassified Remastered, and it is the exclusive home to Star Wars Oxygen Archives. So that's all that and so much more available at the Patreon for Rebel Force Radio. And don't forget, we've got Book of Boba Fett coming up in December, which means we're going to have after shows. And one way to make sure that you get to the head of the queue when calling in for the after shows is to be a Patreon supporter of Rebel Force Radio. So please do join a community of the greatest Star Wars fans in the galaxy over there. All those details at patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. Also, huge thanks to our sponsors this week, the folks at Indeed.com and Raycon. Appreciate their support. RFR on YouTube. If you are looking for that interview with, say, Tony Baxter, or maybe some of those classic Billy D quotes of the week from back in the day, you can find all that and so much more over on the Rebel Force Radio YouTube page. Costs you nothing. Just put it in your YouTube search, look for Rebel Force Radio, subscribe to the channel, and click that notification bell. You'll get notifications when we release new content and when we go live with things like the Boba Fett, Book of Boba Fett after show.
The Boba Fett.
The Boba Fett. The Boba Fett. The Boba Fett.
Boba Fett. Where's Bubba?
Where's Boba Fett? All right, from classic interviews and parodies and bits to the latest live stream after shows, all that on YouTube, the Rebel Force Radio channel. And the best way to talk to us in between shows, if you'd like, we take a look at our email and listen to our voicemails. Email address show@rebelforceradio.com, and the voicemail line 708-3201-RFR. That's 708-320-1737. Follow us on our social media platforms like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and the official website for all things and everything, Rebel Force Radio, rebelforceradio.com. But above all, best way you can support us here is to keep listening. Subscribe to the podcast, Rebel Force Radio, on your podcatcher of choice. And check us out. We are streaming 24/7 on apps like Apple Podcasts, websites like Jedi News. We're on iHeart, TuneIn, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon, Audible, Pandora, Samsung. Anywhere you can find podcasts, you'll find us right here in Rebel Force Radio. Your source for the Force. Until next time, we'll see you. For Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
And I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.
Make it good.
Are you an angel?